Chapter 153. In fact, flying-type Fays were rather expensive in the Radiance Federation, especially the rare flying-type Fays that could be ridden. In the Radiance Federation, flying-type Fays that could be ridden weren't just used as a means of transportation. They were also treated as luxurious goods to show off one's status. Lin Yuan walked on the streets of Redbud City and looked at the flourishing Redbud City. Lin Yuan realized that he had a special fate with Redbud City. Every time he came to Redbud City, his state of mind would be different. The first time he came to Redbud City was when he was in a hurry to deliver the bronze rhinoceros iron bull to Chu Ci. At that time, Lin Yuan had just recovered his ability to sense spirit qi and discovered his creation master abilities. At that time, Lin Yuan had a boundless longing for the future. In Lin Yuan's opinion, he had already set up a new life goal. The second time he came, Lin Yuan had skipped a grade and passed the creation master exam, becoming a Class 2 creation master. At that moment, Lin Yuan already had the confidence that his path was under his feet. This was also Lin Yuan's third time coming to Redbud City. After experiencing life and death battles, he had a clear view of this world. Lin Yuan had already determined the path he wanted to take in the future. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard a hawking voice. "Cornbread $1 for 4. Lin Yuan couldn't help but reveal a bright smile. During his 3 visits he would see this stall selling cornbread. It was truly fate. Lin Yuan walked up and spent $1 Federation to buy 4 cornbread buns. Lin Yuan picked up a cornbread and bit into it. After eating meals made with high-grade spiritual ingredients in the Radiant Moon Palace for a few months, Lin Yuan realized that his mouth was much more picky than before. A few months ago he felt that the cornbread was rather delicious, but now it was a little hard to swallow. When he swallowed this cornbread that was a little hard to swallow, Lin Yuan felt that it should be changed to thinking of sweetness. In Lin Yuan's opinion, his previous strong self was sweet. Because the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar had washed away all the impurities in his body, Lin Yuan had perfected his genetic model. After washing away all the impurities in his body, Lin Yuan's originally excellent temperament had become even more extraordinary. After washing away all the impurities, Lin Yuan's originally excellent temperament had become even more extraordinary. His bright youthful aura had an indescribable carefreeness that attracted many people's gazes along the way. Previously Lin Yuan's pearl shone faintly. However, now that he was back at the same place, he was already unparalleled in the world. Before going to the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy, where Chu Ci was, he specially went to the store to buy some fruits. Among these fresh fruits, Lin Yuan had also added some that were unique to Ascending Dragon City's Millstone Town. Fruits that couldn't be bought in Redbud City. Lin Yuan had brought these fruits to Teacher Bao. Whether it was those who had helped him or Chu Ci when he had been weak, he would remember them in his heart as long as he knew about them. When he arrived at the entrance of the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy, he called Chu Ci. The call was quickly picked up by Chu Ci. "Lin Yuan, why are you calling me at this time? I just finished training. You don't know how strong this sharp iron horn bull is. Even those seniors can't beat me." When Chu Ci saw that Lin Yuan was calling her, she started talking. However, Lin Yuan could not help but touch the back of his head. Lin Yuan had a question. Was Chu Ci done for? "I'm a defense-type spirit chi professional." Chu Ci was simply using the sharp iron horn bull as an offense-type Fey. She was actually competing with a senior during the training session. What if she was injured by the senior? Even if Lin Yuan had a free and easy temperament, he could not help but worry about his only blood relative in this world. When Chu Ci saw that Lin Yuan did not say anything, she immediately knew what the problem was. "I'm not trying to improve myself as quickly as possible. Brother, you're already a creation master. If I don't work hard, won't I be left further and further behind by you?" When Lin Yuan heard Chu Ci call him brother, he immediately knew that things were not so simple. Chu Ci should have been injured in training. Otherwise, based on their many years of experience of relying on each other, Chu Ci would usually call him brother. Chu Ci usually called him Lin Yuan, but whenever she called him big brother, nothing good would happen. Lin Yuan said hurriedly, "Where are you? I'll go over to find you." On the other end of the line, Chu Ci was delighted at first. Then, she glanced at the teacher who was treating her and could not help but stick out her tongue. At that moment, the teacher who was treating Chu Ci spoke. "Chu Ci, the bones in your arm are cracked. My Fey can only treat superficial injuries. You need to recuperate on your own." When the medical teacher opened his mouth, Chu Ci wanted to cover the phone, but Lin Yuan still heard the words fractured bones. Chu Ci could not help but feel guilty. Every time Lin Yuan called her, he would always tell her to be careful and she would always tell him not to worry. However, it seemed that she had been caught. Chu Xi trained very hard. When she had nothing to do, she would train her combat skills with her seniors on the training ground. However, the teacher would treat her every time. This was the first time she had a fractured bone. "Brother, wait for me. I'll pick you up now, but you may have to accompany me to buy some spiritual ingredients to treat bone injuries." Chu Xi glanced at her arm, which was hanging down, and did not dare to use force. She knew that such an injury could not be concealed even if she wanted to. Lin Yuan now had a headache. Chu Xi had been a steady person since she was young. Why did she also become reckless after having the sharp iron horn bull, a defense-type fey that relied on brute defense? Lin Yuan had always wanted to turn Chu Xi into an iron bucket that no one could break, but he had put it aside. Now, Lin Yuan felt that it was necessary to revive this idea. In order to prevent Chu Xi from getting injured again, it was imperative to turn her into an iron bucket. The cocoon of the powder butterfly in Lin Yuan's spirit lock spatial zone had already hatched. The normal powder butterfly inside had also been transformed into a bronze Vajra butterfly. Before the powder butterfly evolved into the Vajra butterfly, Lin Yuan had already raised the elite powder butterfly's quality to epic. Therefore, the bronze Vajra butterfly had 3 exclusive skills to choose from. 2 of these 3 exclusive skills were not considered good, so Lin Yuan gave up on them. The appearance of the 3rd exclusive skill, counterattack tremor, made Lin Yuan overjoyed. This exclusive skill could allow Chu Xi to defend against the opponent's attack while reflecting a portion of the damage caused by the opponent's attack back in the form of energy tremor. The Vajra butterfly's elite ability, Vajra Shield, would allow the Vajra butterfly to fly around the target and condense a solid, transparent Vajra shield on the target. This was the prototype of an iron bucket in Lin Yuan's mind. The Vajra butterfly's exclusive skill, counterattack tremor, allowed Chu Xi to have a certain counterattack method while strengthening her defense. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this was the choice that a defense-type spirit chi professional should make. Compared to the Vajra butterfly, the sharp iron horn bull was simply a fake defense-type fey. The Vajra butterfly was a fey that Lin Yuan and Chu Xi had discussed and chosen after a lot of choices. If the Vajra butterfly was properly nurtured, it could evolve into a jadeite butterfly at gold. The jadeite butterfly had the reputation of being the best among gold defense-type feys. This meant that the shield released by the jadeite butterfly was recognized as the best among gold defense-type feys in terms of hardness. However, to nurture the Vajra butterfly into a jadeite butterfly required a lot of resources and extremely pure spirit chi. Now that Lin Yuan had the Radiance dollars in Cheng Wu's beetle-shaped diamond fey storage box, he naturally did not need to worry about a lot of resources. Other creation masters might not be able to produce extremely pure spirit chi, but for Lin Yuan, it was just circulating the spiritual power in his body. It was extremely simple. Therefore, Lin Yuan was confident that he could evolve Chu Xi's Vajra butterfly into a jadeite butterfly at gold. As for the jadeite butterfly's evolution into the legendary Tourmaline Emperor butterfly, he would have to start from memory. At that moment, Lin Yuan could not help but set up a plan to nurture his younger sister into an iron bucket. Stack the thickest armor. Even if you get the most vicious beating, even if you get the most severe beating, you will not get hurt at all. This is what a mature brother should do. The Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy was currently in class, so there were not many people at the school entrance. At that moment, a young girl's nervous little head appeared at the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy school entrance. When the young girl saw the sunny youth standing at the school entrance, she immediately beamed with joy and was about to rush up when she suddenly thought of something. She hurriedly revealed a pitiful smile and said sweetly, "Big brother, I missed you after not seeing you for so long. Bro, I missed you after not seeing you for so long." Baidu was reading the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 154. Lin Yuan had been a little angry at first. Chu Xi, a defense-type spirit chi professional, had actually fought with a senior and injured herself, causing her arm to fracture due to the battle injury. If she wanted to practice combat skills, she could have gone to Star Web and climbed the tower to fight. Lin Yuan had not seen Chu Xi for a few months, and the longing he had suppressed in his heart had completely erupted at this moment. Especially when he had been attacked by Cheng Wu at the moment of life and death, he had only thought of Chu Xi, his only family. The responsibility of being an elder brother made Lin Yuan afraid that if he really died, Chu Xi would have no one to rely on. Lin Yuan looked at Chu Xi's pitiful face and sweetly called him elder brother. When he looked at Chu Xi's big round eyes, Lin Yuan knew that she was using the trick that worked every time. However, Lin Yuan really could not do anything about Chu Xi like this. All the anger in his heart because of worry had dissipated. Even if Lin Yuan was a free and easy person when facing his only family member Chu Xi, he would still inevitably have double standards. If a defense-type spirit chi professional like Chu Xi fought with a senior and worked hard to improve her combat skills, Lin Yuan would definitely immediately give her a thumbs up and praise her. After all, Star Web combat skills were not as solid as actual combat skills. This was also why the school's actual combat classes were not on Star Web. Even if she was injured, in Lin Yuan's opinion, since it was a real combat, how could she not be injured? However, when it was Chu Xi who was injured, Lin Yuan did not think so. When Chu Xi walked over, her hand was hanging there and she was frowning because of the pain of walking. Lin Yuan immediately felt distressed and immediately activated the Silver/Fantasy Jasmine Lily's ability, Heal. A green light filled with vitality went toward Chu Xi's injured left arm. As the green light flowed, Chu Xi felt as if her arm was surrounded by an indescribable comfort. In less than a moment, Chu Xi realized that her arm was no longer in pain. She tried to move her arm and said in surprise, "Lin Yuan, when did you become a healing-type spirit chi professional? Lin Yuan, when did you become a healing-type spirit chi professional?" Chu Xi had only known that Lin Yuan had the talent to become a creation master, but she did not expect him to also be a healing-type spirit chi professional. Chu Xi hurriedly trotted to Lin Yuan's side and happily took a closer look at Lin Yuan's healing hand. When Chu Xi was studying at school, the person she missed the most was undoubtedly Lin Yuan. Ever since she knew that Lin Yuan's body had recovered, she could finally put her worries to rest. As for whether Lin Yuan was a creation master or a spirit chi professional, Chu Xi would naturally be happy for him. However, what she valued the most was still his health. Just like how he was worried about Chu Xi getting hurt. In her heart, he was a giant who had always shielded her from the wind and rain in her life. The word Big Brother would forever be the most sacred and powerful word in her heart. She only had a faint impression of her parents. After all, she had been too young when her parents had gone to resist the dimensional rift and never returned. Therefore in her life, it had always been her elder brother Lin Yuan. Even when his body was weak, he still managed the face store. No matter how hard it was, he gritted his teeth and supported his family to send him to school. Now, as long as something good happened to him, she would be happier than if something good happened to her. This kind of brother-sister relationship, which had depended on each other for more than 10 years, could not be expressed in words. Although it was already late autumn in Redbud City, it was still hot and humid. However, the wind wasn't weak. The autumn wind scattered a strand of her hair, causing one of her ahog to stand on end. He hurriedly brushed away the raised ahog on her head with his hand and pressed it down. Chu Xi's hair had been rather hard since she was young. Every autumn, when the wind blew, the ahog on her head would stand up. Every time Lin Yuan saw her, he would skillfully press down the ahog on her head. "Are there any classes that haven't finished today?" Chu Xi said after some thought. "There was an actual combat class in the afternoon, but my arm was injured, so I should be resting in the dormitory," Lin Yuan said as he handed the fruit in his hand to Chu Xi. "Then I'll accompany you to ask for leave from Teacher Bao." Chu Xi could rest in the dormitory in the afternoon due to her arm injury and didn't have to participate in the actual combat class. But now that Chu Xi's arm had recovered, he still had to inform Chu Xi's form teacher. After all, in Lin Yuan's opinion, he still had to abide by the school's rules and regulations. It just so happened that Lin Yuan was about to send the fruit to Teacher Bao. Along the way to Teacher Bao's office, he knocked on the door and entered. He saw Teacher Bao sitting at the table and writing something. When Lin Yuan took a closer look, he realized that the thick book was actually a lesson plan. Teacher Bao was a teacher of Fey observation, and he taught theoretical knowledge. When Lin Yuan saw the thick lesson plan that Teacher Bao was writing, he knew that Teacher Bao had put in a lot of effort to make it easier for the students he taught to understand Feis. When Teacher Bao saw Lin Yuan beside Chu Xi, he was obviously stunned for a moment. After taking a closer look, he confirmed Lin Yuan's identity. Chu Xi and Lin Yuan had been together for more than 10 years. No matter how one looked at it, they were the closest people. Although Lin Yuan's temperament had undergone a great change, Chu Xi didn't feel any difference. This was because in Chu Xi's heart, Lin Yuan was the best in every aspect. However, Teacher Bao had only met Lin Yuan twice. Now that he saw Lin Yuan again, he didn't dare to recognize him. This youth in front of him was sunny, handsome, and had an outstanding temperament. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was extremely romantic. However, after confirming Lin Yuan's identity, he nodded and looked at Chu Xi's hand. Student Chu Si's talent is very good. Last week, she became a C-rank spirit chi professional. However, the bones in her hand have suffered a rather serious injury. It will take 100 days for the injured tendons and bones to recover. Your parents must pay attention to it. If you can prepare some spiritual ingredients that can promote bone healing and cooperate with the school doctor's treatment, the recovery speed can be increased. Teacher Bao spoke very seriously. If Chu Si's hand could recover earlier, she could also train as soon as possible so that it wouldn't be a waste of Chu Si's excellent talent. For spirit chi professionals, it was very important to build a good foundation when they were young. Chu Si raised her hand and smiled at Teacher Bao. Teacher Bao, my hand has been healed by my brother. Chu Si didn't think much of it, but when Teacher Bao heard it, he couldn't help but look at Lin Yuan in surprise. Teacher Bao didn't expect Lin Yuan to not only be a healing-type spirit chi professional, but his healing ability was also so strong that he could heal bone injuries. Teacher Bao had a very serious personality, but when he saw that Chu Si's hand had recovered, he couldn't help but smile. The smile on Teacher Bao's wrinkled face made his stern face look a little benevolent. When Lin Yuan told Teacher Bao the reason for his visit, Teacher Bao waved his hand and approved Chu Si's leave. Before leaving, Lin Yuan asked Chu Si to place the fruit on Teacher Bao's desk. Before Lin Yuan could say anything, Teacher Bao picked up the fruit and handed it back. As a parent, why did you buy fruit when you came to pick up student Chu Si? Take it away. I have to write my lesson plan. After saying that, Teacher Bao leaned over the desk and continued to write his lesson plan. Lin Yuan didn't say that he was going to leave the fruit for Teacher Bao again. Instead, he left the office with Chu Si. In this world, there were always some people who were the most respectable. They taught and educated without asking for anything in return. Their white hair reflected the sun and moon, and their loyal hearts nourished new flowers. Perhaps Teacher Bao had long forgotten about the help he had given Chu Si. Teacher Bao wasn't strong and was just an ordinary person among the masses. However, what he did was like a jade pot with a heart of ice that shone with a great light. Read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 155. They were now on the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy's campus and were about to leave. It was the end of class and the campus was filled with laughter and noise. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard the two students beside him and Chu Si speak. "What's the loneliest phrase you've ever heard?" Another student said without thinking. "Student, you're the only one who hasn't handed in your homework." Then he asked, "Do you know what extreme sports are?" The student who asked the question before was obviously an expert as he replied without hesitation. "When the teacher collects homework, you copy other people's homework to make up for your own." When Lin Yuan heard that, he couldn't help but raise his brows. These two students were really clever. Fortunately, Chu Si never had to worry about her studies. Chu Si walked beside Lin Yuan with a smile on her face. It was obvious that she was in a very good mood. Lin Yuan looked at Chu Si and said, "Sure. You have already become a C-rank spirit chi professional, but why didn't you tell me over the phone? If Teacher Bao didn't tell me, how long were you going to hide it from me?" Chu Si stuck out her tongue, wrinkled her nose, and said, "I wanted to tell you personally when you came to see me, but old Bao spilled the beans before I told you." Apart from giving her a sense of security, her progress had also improved a lot. Perhaps the happiest thing was to share it with Lin Yuan and let the person closest to him share the joy of his advancement. Lin Yuan was actually quite surprised. Although Lin Yuan knew that Chu Si had good talent, he did not expect that she would be able to reach C rank from D rank in such a short period of cultivation. Lin Yuan knew that he was an anomaly. Spirit chi professionals had to rely on enhancing phase to increase their rank, so he could not compare himself with Chu Si. However, even the people in the front row of the Radiance 100 sequence, such as the Radiance 100 sequence number 3 Long Tao, who was known as Overturn the Sea, could not compare to them. Right now he was only a pinnacle B rank spirit chi professional, and there was still a very difficult boundary to cross from A rank. Chu Si was only 15 years old, and Long Tao might not be able to break through to become a C rank spirit chi professional by the time he was 15. At that moment, Chu Si whispered to Lin Yuan, "Don't worry. Lin Yuan, I seem to have comprehended a willpower rune after becoming a C rank spirit chi professional." After saying that, Chu Si circulated her mind power. A willpower rune with a black metallic luster flew out of Chu Si's mind. This willpower rune with a black metallic luster revolved around Chu Si's body, giving off an extremely heavy feeling. Before Lin Yuan could digest his previous surprise, Chu Si had given him another shock. Chu Si had comprehended a willpower rune at the age of 15, which was equivalent to possessing a fantasy breed Fae. There might not be an absolute boundary between a spirit chi professional's grade and a contracted phase grade, but they were closely related. The limit of a D-rank spirit chi professional was to be able to control a bronze Fae. A C-rank spirit chi professional's limit was a gold Fae. At B-rank, spirit chi professionals could only control platinum Faes at their limit. As for A-rank spirit chi professionals, their limit was already at the diamond grade. If one wanted a Fae to reach the suzerain grade, the spirit chi professional would need to be at S-rank first. If the spirit chi professional's grade was not up to par, it might cause a very awkward situation if they rashly increased the Fae's grade. For example, if one spiritual energy could not withstand the load, it might collapse. The increase in a spirit chi professional's grade would also increase the spiritual energy and the spirit chi in the body. If the number of contracted Faes was small, the spiritual energy might barely reach the standard and not collapse. However, even if the spiritual energy did not collapse, the spiritual power in the body would definitely not be able to keep up with the consumption of the Fae's abilities. Therefore, it had always been a big taboo for spirit chi professionals to rashly look for a creation master to increase the Fae's grade when their grade was not up to par. Chu Ci was now a C-rank spirit chi professional and had reached the level where she could withstand gold Faes. Chu Ci's willpower rune had the oppressive feeling of metal, which was obviously very suitable for the sharp iron horn bull. At that moment, a pleasant yet strange voice suddenly echoed in his ears. Lin Yuan, your sister's talent is simply too shocking. Given time, her future will be limitless. Even though the mother of Bloodbath was experienced and knowledgeable, it could not help but sigh at Chu Ci's talent. When Lin Yuan saw that Chu Ci had a willpower rune, he said to her seriously, "Give Teacher Bao a call later and ask for 10 days of leave." Lin Yuan did not say what to do and Chu Ci did not ask either. She immediately called Teacher Bao. When Teacher Bao saw that it was Chu Ci who was asking for leave, he thought that there was something wrong with her hand and did not hesitate to approve it. When Teacher Bao saw that it was Chu Ci who asked for leave, he thought that there was something wrong with her hand and approved it without hesitation. However, due to Chu Ci's talent, this Iron Bucket Sister plan needed to be implemented now. When Lin Yuan saw that Chu Ci had finished the call, he reached out and touched her head. When Lin Yuan saw that Chu Ci was done with the call, he reached out and touched her head. After Chu Ci finished the call, Lin Yuan reached out to touch her head and said, "Chu Ci, you can be considered a powerful spirit chi professional now." If Chu Ci had a fantasy breed Fae, she would indeed be able to bear the word powerful. Apart from needing a willpower rune, the most difficult thing for a bronze/fantasy breed Fae was to increase its quality to legend. Most creation masters would not be able to do anything about such an ability. Faes also had different talents. Faes with extremely high talents could also increase their quality to a very high level without the help of a creation master. However, such Faes were always encountered and not sought after. He did not know what grade of creation master would be able to evolve a bronze Fae to legend. However, ordinary Class 4 creation masters obviously could not do it, and Lin Yuan did not know if pinnacle Class 4 creation masters could succeed. However, it was not difficult for Lin Yuan to increase a bronze Fae to legend. Given Lin Yuan's standard as a C-rank spirit chi professional, he only needed 5 days to enhance Faes in the Spirit Lock spatial zone and upgrade a bronze Fae to legend. Therefore, the real difficulty for Chu Ci to have a fantasy breed at bronze was that she needed a willpower rune. She already had this willpower rune. Lin Yuan had asked Chu Ci to apply for 10 days of leave from Teacher Bao because he wanted to properly enhance her. When Chu Ci saw that Lin Yuan had been looking serious as though he was thinking about something, she whispered to him seriously, "Lin Yuan, I didn't tell anyone that I comprehended a willpower rune." Lin Yuan, I didn't tell anyone that I comprehended a willpower rune. Upon hearing Chu Ci's words, Lin Yuan laughed. There was a saying that children from poor families matured early, and this saying was indeed true. Lin Yuan had lived 2 lives and naturally understood the principle of the tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. Chu Ci had grown up in a difficult environment and also understood this principle. Lin Yuan was very pleased with Chu Ci's cautiousness. At the same time, Lin Yuan looked at Chu Ci with a firm gaze and said, "It's a good thing to hide your edge. However, from now on you don't need to hide your edge anymore. You can show your talents to your heart's content." Lin Yuan had already made a decision when he knew that Chu Ci had comprehended a willpower rune. He wanted to tell his master, the Moon Empress, about Chu Ci's talent. He could afford all of Chu Ci's Faes and resources in the future. However, Lin Yuan needed to ensure that Chu Si could show her talent to her heart's content in front of everyone with such a strong talent and that no one would have any bad ideas because of jealousy. Lin Yuan had always wanted to roam the world single-handedly. However, Lin Yuan knew that the moment he had acknowledged the Moon Empress as his master, she had already become his teacher and a relative who had no blood relations with him. No matter what, Lin Yuan would always have one of the Radiance Federation's 3 Class 5 creation masters behind him. With the Moon Empress around, Chu Si's safety would not be a problem. As he looked at Chu Si, Lin Yuan could not help but feel proud. Lin Yuan's heart was filled with lofty sentiments. Since my sister has talent, why does she need to hide? She should shine in the center of everyone. At the same time, Lin Yuan's gaze became increasingly firm. Given his current improvement speed, he would be able to protect Chu Si even if he was alone in 2 years. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly felt as though he had a daughter in his family who had just matured. Baiduan read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 156. Since he had decided to give Chu Si an upgrade, Lin Yuan did not delay at all. After Lin Yuan and Chu Si went to have a meal, he brought Chu Si to the Redbud City's Creation Master Association. At that time, Lin Yuan had completed the Class 2 Creation Master exam in the Redbud City's Creation Master Association. This time Lin Yuan first paid a visit to Elder Ning. When he saw Elder Ning, he found that Elder Ning was still nurturing that spiral-toothed shark. Compared to when Lin Yuan had seen the spiral-toothed shark more than 2 months ago, this spiral-toothed shark had become even larger. At the same time, it was also stronger. This was a sign that the spiral-toothed shark was about to undergo prehistoric atavism again. It seemed that Elder Ning's intention of activating the trace of Megalodon's bloodline in this spiral-toothed shark was really very likely to be realized. After paying a visit to Elder Ning, Lin Yuan rented a breeding room in the Creation Master Association as a Class 2 Creation Master. Then he prepared some fresh fruits rich in spirit chi in the breeding room, which became Lin Yuan's meals for the next few days. In these few days, Lin Yuan wanted to carry out a qualitative upgrade for Chu Si. Although Chu Si had been attending school in Redbud City for some time, this was her first time coming to the Creation Master Association in Redbud City. As a member of the Radiance Federation, Chu Si did not know much about the various aspects of Creation Master's phase. However, Chu Si also knew the status of Creation Masters in the Radiance Federation. Lin Yuan being able to become a Creation Master made Chu Si exceptionally proud. Lin Yuan's expectations for Chu Si were the same as Chu Si's expectations for him. It was just that she was healthy. However, she would not be less proud of any achievements of the other party. Lin Yuan took out the Vajra butterfly stored in the leaf-shaped diamond Fei storage box in the breeding room. Fei name, Vajra butterfly, Fei species, Chrysalis/Chrysalis, Fei grade, bronze 10/10, Fei type, metal, Fei quality, epic abilities frowny face wing block, condense hard metal on the wings to block, steel pattern shield. Quickly attach to the target and condense a hard metal transparent omnidirectional shield that can follow the target's movement. Exclusive skill frowny face counterattack tremor. When attacked, a portion of the damage received will be reflected back in the form of an energy tremor, regardless of whether it is a physical attack or a magic attack. Lin Yuan was very satisfied with this Vajra butterfly, especially its exclusive skill. This Vajra butterfly is very suitable for you and can take on your responsibilities as a defense-type spirit chi professional. After the Vajra butterfly appeared, Chu Si saw a butterfly the size of an adult's fist that looked like a metal sculpture flying around Lin Yuan. The butterfly's wings shone with a dark metallic luster, with many metallic patterns. While flying, the Vajra butterfly flew to Chu Si's side at Lin Yuan's signal. Chu Si extended her hand, and the Vajra butterfly immediately landed on it. After teasing the Vajra butterfly for a while, Chu Si formed a contract with it. She was naturally very clear about the responsibilities of a defense-class spirit chi professional. In a team, defense-class spirit chi professionals had to cooperate with the rest of the team to take on the responsibility of defense in the team. Although the sharp iron horn bull was a defense-type Fei, it was undoubtedly more like a combat-class Fei, and its sacrifice characteristic was only effective against Chu Si. Therefore, Chu Si had only formed a contract with the sharp iron horn bull. If she formed a team with others as a defense-class spirit chi professional, she would obviously not be qualified. But now that she had the Vajra butterfly, things were clearly different. After Chu Si completed the contract with the Vajra butterfly, Lin Yuan let her summon the sharp iron horn bull. The sharp iron horn bull moved as soon as it appeared. It gently rubbed its cheek against Chu Xi's hand, still worried about Chu Xi's injuries in the previous battle. Clearly it was very attached to Chu Xi. Then the sharp iron horn bull saw Lin Yuan and turned its head to Chu Xi. Under Chu Xi's signal, it walked to Lin Yuan's side. It shook its head at Lin Yuan as a greeting. It was obvious that the sharp iron horn bull still remembered Lin Yuan, but after becoming Chu Xi's contracted fei, it had forgotten about him. Although it remembered that Lin Yuan had saved it at that time, the moment it became Chu Xi's contracted fei, it would only listen to Chu Xi's words. Feis had a spirit and they always chose one person for life. Chu Xi looked at the sharp iron horn bull's current state and knew that she had nurtured it well. At that moment, the sharp iron horn bull had evolved from bronze level I 2 months ago to bronze level 4. Such a speed was undoubtedly very fast without the help of a creation master. In addition, the sharp iron horn bull's body was much stronger than before. The metal luster on its body was thicker, and even the horns on its head were sharper. Clearly, the sharp iron horn bull usually ate a lot of metal to have such good development. However, Chu Xi was now faced with a choice. The willpower rune that Chu Xi had comprehended had a strong feeling of metal. Therefore, this willpower rune was very suitable for both the sharp iron horn bull and the Vajra butterfly that she had just formed a contract with. In such a situation, Chu Xi, as the contractor, had to make a choice. Lin Yuan knew that the choice would be very difficult, but Chu Xi had to make a choice because there was only one willpower rune after all. Chu Xi, your willpower runes are suitable for both the Vajra butterfly and the sharp iron horn bull. Which fei do you want to evolve into a fantasy breed? Fantasy breed? Chu Xi asked in surprise. She could not make sense of the situation. Why did Lin Yuan suddenly mention fantasy breed? He even asked her to choose between the sharp iron horn bull and the Vajra butterfly to evolve into a fantasy breed first? Although fantasy breeds were not considered common knowledge, they were taught in Chu Xi's courses. Chu Xi naturally knew that to evolve a fei into a fantasy breed, she needed to evolve it to legend. Chu Xi looked at Lin Yuan in a daze. Could Lin Yuan be able to evolve a fei to legend? Lin Yuan reached out and scratched the tip of Chu Xi's nose, bringing her back to reality. Silly girl, when have I ever lied to you? The choice you make this time will affect your future development path for a long time, so you must be careful. She had always trusted him unconditionally. Therefore, she was now carefully thinking about the problem that Lin Yuan had asked her to think about and began to weigh the use of willpower runes in her heart. In the end, Chu Xi said firmly after a moment of contemplation, I choose the sharp iron horn bull. Lin Yuan sighed. Selfishly, he hoped that she would choose the Vajra butterfly. Since the Vajra butterfly had evolved into a fantasy breed, it could protect Chu Xi's safety very well, and she would almost never be in danger of having her arm fractured like today. After all, the Vajra butterfly was an extremely powerful defense-type fei. After evolving into a fantasy breed and awakening its second exclusive skill, its defense would only become stronger. Previously, Lin Yuan had wanted to create an iron bucket sister. However, as a spirit chi professional and a person with an independent personality, she had the right to choose the path she wanted to take in the future. As an elder brother, Lin Yuan would intervene when it came to major issues, but he could only guide her on this path. At that moment, Lin Yuan asked again very cautiously, have you really decided on the sharp iron horn bull? Willpower runes had always been something that could only be encountered and not sought. Although Chu Xi had already obtained a willpower rune, she did not know when she would obtain another willpower rune again. Therefore, all spirit chi professionals were very cautious about the phase they wanted to choose for the willpower rune. Once they chose a fei to fuse with the willpower rune, it was very likely that their combat style and combat system in the future would change with this choice. Chu Xi nodded without the slightest hesitation this time, her eyes shining. Lin Yuan, I'm sure. Chu Xi also had her own goal. She wanted to pass the Redbud 100 selection and become one of the top 10. Then she would represent Redbud City to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence competition. Chu Xi had some considerations in her heart. If she chose the Vajra butterfly, although her defense would increase, her combat ability would undoubtedly be much weaker than choosing the sharp iron horn bull. However, whether it was the Redbud 100 selection or the Radiance 100 sequence competition, individual ability was undoubtedly more important than team ability. Therefore, if he wanted to be in the top 10 of the Redbud 100 and be qualified to participate in the Radiance 100 sequence competition, it would undoubtedly be more suitable to evolve the sharp iron horn bull into a fantasy breed. At the same time as Chu Xi's first fei, the sharp iron horn bull had long since adapted to fighting with it. In fact, Chu Si, a 15-year-old girl, had her own ambitions. She wanted to use her own efforts to stand in the Radiance 100 sequence. Although she had always been sheltered under Lin Yuan's wings, she still felt that she could not help it. However, one day she also wanted to be fully fledged and able to protect him. This was the warm ambition of a young girl. After Chu Si made up her mind, Lin Yuan began to prepare to enhance the sharp iron horn bull. I hope that friends who like this book can come to QQ to support the original version. Thank you very much. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 157. Lin Yuan's Fey affinity was with healing type phase, support type phase and plant type phase. However, as a healing type and support type phase, Lin Yuan had the heart to output. Lin Yuan chose to nurture Red Thorn into a combat class Fey. He chose to nurture Red Thorn into a combat class Fey. Just by looking at Red Thorn's current form, it could be seen how dedicated Lin Yuan was to output. However, Lin Yuan did not expect his younger sister to be like him. As a defense-type spirit chi professional, she was addicted to controlling a big iron bull to output. It was true that people who were not of the same family would not enter the same door. If he wanted to upgrade the bronze sharp iron horn bull's quality to legend, he would need more than 5 days. During these 5 days, Lin Yuan would be able to enhance the sharp iron horn bull by himself in the breeding room. At that moment, a bell rang at the breeding room's door. During normal days, if a creation master was nurturing phase in the creation master's breeding room, no one would disturb them. Therefore, when the bell at the breeding room's door rang, Lin Yuan knew that Elder Ning had arrived. When Lin Yuan had come to visit Chu Si, he had only wanted to send her the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar and let her sign a contract with the Vajra butterfly that he had nurtured previously. He had not expected her to comprehend a willpower rune. If he wanted to enhance the sharp iron horn bull's quality to legend, he would need some spiritual ingredients to assist. However, due to the suddenness of the matter, Lin Yuan had not prepared these spiritual ingredients in advance. Therefore, when he had visited Elder Ning just now, Lin Yuan had asked Elder Ning to see if there were any spiritual ingredients needed to enhance the sharp iron horn bull's quality in the Redbud City's Creation Master Association's material room. Lin Yuan opened the door and saw Elder Ning standing there. At the same time, Lin Yuan saw Ning Xuejuan, who had received him when he had participated in the Creation Master exam in the Redbud City's Creation Master Association. Ning Xuejuan was Elder Ning's granddaughter. Ning Xuejuan was holding a bronze face storage box in her hand. When Ning Xuejuan saw Lin Yuan, she nodded and greeted him. At the same time, her eyes were filled with surprise. Ning Xuejuan had a very deep impression of Lin Yuan, as he was the only one in the Radiance Federation who had scored full marks for all 3 knowledge-type lifestyle spirit chi occupations Class 1 exams. Ning Xuejuan was surprised to see Lin Yuan again. Compared to before, Lin Yuan's temperament seemed to have changed a lot. Elder Ning looked at Lin Yuan and laughed heartily. "Little Yuan, this old man has already prepared all the spiritual materials you asked for previously." At least, he no longer had to waste time collecting the spiritual ingredients needed to upgrade the sharp iron horn bull to legend. Lin Yuan touched the back of his head and smiled brightly. "Elder Ning, thank you for your trouble." If he wanted to upgrade the bronze sharp iron horn bull to legendary grade, he would need a large amount of ferromanganese ores and metal essences. Ferromanganese ores and metal essences were not very rare spirit materials. Metal essence was the crystallization left behind by mixing a large amount of metals together and forging them at high temperatures. Ferromanganese ore is a dark blue flake of metal deep in the earth. While ferromanganese ore was abnormally hard, if one touched it with their hands, their fingers would feel a kind of metallic prickling. Metal essence and ferromanganese ore were 2 spiritual materials. Metal essence required 250 caddies, while ferromanganese ore required 1,000 caddies. Metal essence's price was about 2 radiance dollars per caddy, while ferromanganese ore required nearly 8 radiance dollars per caddy. If it were in the past, Lin Yuan would not be able to take out nearly 20,000 radiance dollars at once. However, since he had the massive amount of radiance dollars in Cheng Wu's beetle-shaped face storage box, Lin Yuan no longer needed to be restrained if he wanted to buy these spiritual ingredients to nurture phase. He could just buy them and use them. Ning Xuejuan handed the bronze face storage box to Lin Yuan and looked at Chu Si, who was beside him. Ning Xuejuan could tell at a glance that Chu Si was Lin Yuan's younger sister, even though Chu Si and Lin Yuan's temperament was completely different. Lin Yuan was the kind of sunny youth that made people feel like they were bathing in the spring breeze. Chu Si, on the other hand, had a trace of coldness in her tranquility. Although she had a smile on her face, she seemed to have a faint sense of alienation from everything except Lin Yuan. Even if their temperaments were completely different, their eyebrows and eyes were very similar. With this kind of facial resemblance, it was obvious that they were related by blood. Ning Xuejuan extended her hand in a friendly manner and greeted Chu Si. Chu Si was stunned. Then she smiled faintly and shook hands with Ning Xuejuan politely. When Elder Ning saw this, he looked at Chu Si and laughed. "Little Yuan, you are nurturing phase inside and can't take care of this little girl. Why don't I bring the little girl out and let my granddaughter accompany her to stroll around?" It just so happened that Lin Yuan had been thinking about enhancing his phase. He could not possibly let her stay in this breeding room out of boredom. He needed to focus on nurturing phase for the next 5 days. He really could not bear to leave her aside. He was more at ease now that Chu Si was with Elder Ning and Ning Xuejuan. Chu Si turned to look at Lin Yuan. After Lin Yuan nodded, she openly followed Elder Ning and Ning Xuejuan out of the breeding room. Lin Yuan was the only one left in the breeding room. Lin Yuan also took out the metal essences and ferromanganese ores stored in the bronze face storage box that Ning Xuejuan had just handed over. Then he touched the sharp iron horn bull's horns and said, "Iron lump, go eat these metal essences and ferromanganese ores, then I'll raise your grade." Although the sharp iron horn bull was not as intelligent as Chimey, it could still understand Lin Yuan's words. Understanding Lin Yuan's meaning, the sharp iron horn bull immediately snorted excitedly and hurriedly ate the metal essences and ferromanganese ores that Lin Yuan had put on the ground. Although there were 250 kilograms of metal essence and 1,000 kilograms of ferromanganese iron, which sounded like a lot, it wasn't worth it. However, because the metal essence and the ferromanganese ores were extremely dense, they were abnormally heavy. Therefore, the metal essences and ferromanganese ores didn't seem to be much. Just as the sharp iron horn bull was happily eating the metal essences and ferromanganese ores, Lin Yuan looked at it and smiled faintly. In Lin Yuan's opinion, obtaining the severely injured elite/epic sharp rock bull had been a great bargain and an excellent fei. But now that Lin Yuan had money, he could easily buy a lot of defense-type feis that were better than the elite/epic sharp rock bull. Fortunately, the elite-ranked sharp rock bull had comprehended the sacrifice skill at elite rank. This rare ability allowed the sharp iron horn bull to be above most defense-type feis. When Lin Yuan had just recovered his body and could feel spirit qi, he didn't have any time to accumulate resources. Therefore, it was really difficult for Lin Yuan to prepare a defense-type fei for Chu Si. However, as a big brother, Lin Yuan had a clear conscience. Back then, Lin Yuan had fulfilled that sentence. "What I'm giving you might not be the best, but this is what I can give. It's the best I can give now." The sharp iron horn bull had undergone a great transformation because of sacrifice. Now, the sharp iron horn bull was about to usher in its second transformation in its bull life. This transformation was also an extremely important sublimation in Chu Si's life. Lin Yuan quickly circulated the spiritual power in his body, and the pure spirit qi was quickly absorbed by every cell in the sharp iron horn bull's body. The sharp iron horn bull's cells seemed to be activated by this pure spiritual power and showed a hungry state, scrambling to absorb the energy in the metal essences and ferromanganese ores in its stomach. Time flew, and Lin Yuan basically didn't rest much for the past 5 days. At that moment, the sharp iron horn bull suddenly mooed. The sharp iron horn bull's body, which was originally nearly 3 meters tall, had now skyrocketed to 3.5 meters and become stronger. The horns on both sides of its head and the horn on its forehead were even sharper, flickering with a cold metallic light. At that moment, Lin Yuan had finally promoted the bronze sharp iron horn bull's quality to legend. Next, he had to wait for Chu Si to fuse the willpower rune with the sharp iron horn bull and evolve it into a fantasy breed. Read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 158. At noon, Chu Si and Ning Xuejuan had just returned from a meal outside. Ning Xuejuan had been interacting with Chu Si for the past few days, and she always felt that Chu Si was refreshing her senses over and over again. At first, Ning Xuejuan felt that Chu Si was a girl who was indifferent and alienated from everything except Lin Yuan. However, after interacting with her for a few days, Ning Xuejuan realized that Chu Si wasn't indifferent to everything. Even that faint sense of alienation had completely disappeared after a few days of interaction. In the end, Ning Xuejuan finally understood that Chu Si's estrangement stemmed from her personality of not wanting to worry about things that didn't concern her, as well as her shyness. Elder Ning had been researching and cultivating the spiral-toothed shark as usual these past few days. Therefore, Ning Xuejuan had been with Chu Xi for the past few days, whether they were eating or resting, and they gradually became friends. Chu Xi, let's not go to this place for dinner tomorrow. Why did they put so much garlic in their cold dish? In the afternoon, I still have to receive some newcomers who are participating in the Creation Master exam. Ning Xuejuan pouted. When Chu Xi heard Ning Xuejuan's words, she took out a watermelon-flavored hard candy from her pocket. The watermelon-flavored hard candy had a refreshing watermelon flavor, and it was able to cover up the strong garlic taste in the mouth. Chu Xi had always had the habit of putting a piece of hard candy in her pocket because her body had been weak in the past and would often feel dizzy. Or they might suffer from hypoglycemia due to the daily chores of maintaining the store. When Chu Xi was by his side, she would hand over the hard candy in her pocket when he was dizzy. Even though Lin Yuan's body had recovered, she still maintained this habit that she had developed for nearly a decade. Ning Xuejuan's eyes lit up when she saw the hard candy Chu Xi handed her. She took it and put it in her mouth, immediately speaking in an exaggerated manner. Chu Xi watermelon-flavored hard candy tastes so good. It's much better than chocolate. At this moment, there were two spirit chi professionals seated in the Creation Master Association's first-floor hall. They looked like females in their 20s and were dressed very beautifully. It was likely that they had made an appointment with a Creation Master to nurture their phase. At that moment, Chu Xi suddenly heard a long-haired female spirit chi professional speak. Last night, my best friend told me that her boyfriend of 8 years had cheated on her. Asked the short-haired female spirit chi professional, who was clearly interested in this topic. Why? How could he cheat on her? After 8 years together, you should have a child by now. The long-haired female spirit chi professional was fiddling with the decorations on her spirit chi attire and said in disdain, "Not a single man is good." Another female spirit chi professional quickly chimed in. "That's right, I think so too. Otherwise I wouldn't still be single." As soon as he finished speaking, the long-haired female spirit chi professional beside him sighed. 8 whole years of love. To think that you couldn't even resist my seduction. Ning Xuejuan started coughing after hearing the conversation. She almost choked on the watermelon-flavored hard candy in her mouth. Chu Xi also had a strange expression on her face. Chu Xi couldn't help but think to herself, "Is this the world of adults?" The world of adults was too scary. Fortunately, I'm just a kid. In the afternoon, Ning Xuejuan went to receive the newcomers that were participating in the Creation Master exam. Chu Xi logged onto the star web in Ning Xuejuan's office and watched the videos of defense-class spirit chi professionals fighting in the S tournament to learn their defensive techniques. At that moment, Chu Xi received a call from Lin Yuan. Chu Xi arrived at the breeding room where Lin Yuan was. As soon as she entered, she saw that her contracted sharp iron horn bull was much stronger than before, be it in size or the sharpness of its horns. Lin Yuan was currently feeding some metal spiritual ingredients to the sharp iron horn bull so that it could accumulate more energy in preparation for becoming a fantasy breed. Lin Yuan stood up when he saw Chu Xi come in. Chu Xi, the sharp iron horn bull's quality has reached legend now. Fuse the willpower rune you comprehended with the sharp iron horn bull, and it will evolve into a fantasy breed. Chu Xi was currently looking at the sharp iron horn bull. She couldn't help but be astonished to see that the sharp iron horn bull had changed so much in 5 days. Although she knew about the means of creation masters, she had always been in school and had never seen or experienced it. The sharp iron horn bull was intimately rubbing its cheek against Chu Xi's palm. Chu Xi was surprised by the sharp iron horn bull's changes while feeling the growth brought about by its quality improvement. She was happy. The splendor of life lay in evolution. No matter what kind of creature it was, every evolution and evolution was a small epitome of life's greatness. Lin Yuan raised his eyebrows and smiled when he saw Chu Xi's astonished look. He said with a smile, "When you fuse the willpower rune with the sharp iron horn bull, it will truly transform." Chu Xi, under what circumstances did you comprehend the willpower rune? This is very important because this willpower rune will affect the direction of your exclusive skill. Chu Xi stuck out her tongue and carefully glanced at Lin Yuan before replying embarrassedly, "Well, when I was fighting against the seniors, the sharp iron horn bull was knocked down again and again." Well, when I was fighting against the seniors, the sharp iron horn bull was knocked down again and again, but it always stood up and charged. Because of this, I felt the sharp iron horn bull's steel-like will and comprehended this willpower rune. Lin Yuan held his forehead. What else could he say? Chu Xi's willpower rune was formed by recklessness. Did that mean that his plan to raise his sister into an iron bucket had failed at this stage? When Lin Yuan saw her careful expression, he rubbed the hair on the top of her head and said, "Don't worry. No matter how you walk your own path, I, your brother, will always stand behind you so you can proudly stride forward." Chu Si beamed brightly and nodded vigorously. Then she silently said in her heart, "You're right. Brother, I also want to tell you in the future that I can stand behind you. Even if I can't protect you, I want to help you and fight alongside you." Chu Si summoned the willpower rune in her spiritual space. Since they had been outside, the willpower rune that Chu Si had summoned had flashed by, and he had not had the chance to carefully feel it. But now, this bluish-black willpower rune had an iron-like willpower and a heavy metallic smell that moved Lin Yuan. Through this willpower rune, Lin Yuan could see how hard a 15-year-old girl and her bronze-sharp iron horn bull worked on a daily basis. As Chu Si urged the dark green willpower rune, it fused with the sharp iron horn bull. A violent mooing resounded in the breeding room. It was different from the calm when the plant-type Fae, the jasmine lily, had evolved into a fantasy breed. At that moment, the sharp iron horn bull's body trembled violently in the thick metallic halo. It was obviously trying its best to endure the pain. Suddenly, the metallic halo flourished, and a pure black color rose from the bluish-black halo. At that moment, Lin Yuan and Chu Si realized that the horns on both sides of the sharp iron horn bull's head and the sword-like horn on its forehead instantly melted. Then, the sharp iron horn bull's entire body was wrapped in this sudden flourishing metallic halo. Read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 159. Chu Si saw the sharp iron armored bull's horns suddenly melt, and then its entire body was completely enveloped by a metallic halo. Hearing the sharp iron horn bull's pained moo, Chu Si could not help but feel anxious, and her mind wavered. At that moment she heard Lin Yuan's voice. When a sharp iron horn bull advances to a fantasy breed, it will undergo an all-round change. Fantasy breeds transform and sublimate their genetic model, so the sharp iron horn bull will definitely experience pain when its body is reconstructed. Lin Yuan's words put Chu Si at ease. She listened to the sharp iron horn bull's painful roar. Chu Si felt an indescribable heartache for this companion she had been with day and night. This greenish-black metallic halo was abnormally thick, but there was an extremely pure black color rising from it. Ink flowed in this metallic halo, and not long after, the ink gave off an obsidian-like luster. Gradually, an obsidian-like luster replaced the greenish-black metallic halo. The sound of a bull's mooing could be heard even in the breeding room. This obsidian-like luster was completely restless. Finally, this restless obsidian-like luster converged and condensed, and was completely absorbed by the sharp iron horn bull's eyes. Accompanied by Chu Si's exclamation, the sharp iron horn bull, which had been promoted to a fantasy breed, finally revealed its true appearance. If the sharp iron horn bull was said to have sharp horns and unusually thick armor, then the sharp iron horn bull looked like a simpleton. Right now, the sharp iron horn bull's entire body was condensed with a kind of Zhuang Yi's beauty in battle. This kind of beauty was hidden behind the boiling will of steel, with an indomitable determination. The sharp iron horn bull's originally greenish-black body had completely turned black. This black was not pure black, but like obsidian, it would produce various colored flares under a beam of light. Lin Yuan looked at the sharp iron horn bull and suddenly felt that it seemed to have a sense of aesthetics when it evolved into a fantasy breed. He had actually tidied himself up into a colorful black. However, it had to be said that the sharp iron horn bull's obsidian-like body combined with its smooth metallic lines made it look less cumbersome than before. Just by looking at the sharp iron horn bull's eyes, it was as if it was an arrogant and determined beast. The sharp iron horn bull's melted horns did not grow back. Instead, there were dark holes where the horns used to be. However, the metal elements gushing out of the holes would form all kinds of horns on the sharp iron horn bull's head according to its will. After the sharp iron horn bull completed its evolution, it trotted to Chu Si's side and rubbed its head lovingly against her hand. In the past, the sharp iron horn bull had to be very careful every time it came into contact with Chu Si. If the sharp horns were to touch her hand, they would cut her hand. But now that it was a fantasy breed, the sharp iron horn bull no longer needed to worry about hurting Chu Si. When the sharp iron horn bull evolved into a fantasy breed, its horns would be completely elemental, and it would only condense its horns according to its will during battle. In his opinion, the elementalized bull horn was many times stronger than the sharp iron horn bull's horn. The sharpness and hardness of the sharp iron horn bull's horns, which had been upgraded to a fantasy breed, were many times higher than before. However, the strength of the sharp iron horn bull's elemental horns did not lie in their hardness and sharpness. Instead, it lay in the ability to change its shape, length, and direction at will. When the sharp iron horn bull charged, it had to adjust the angle of its horns according to the target to achieve the maximum degree of damage or defense. But now, when the sharp iron horn bull charged, it could directly control its elemental horns to condense them into various shapes and greet the target's weakness. The elemental condensation only took an instant and it was not easy to dodge. It was just like when the sharp iron horn bull and other horn phase clashed, and the other horn phase and the sharp iron horn bull's sharp horns collided. When the sharp iron horn bull used its elemental horns to block, it could instantly condense a sharp black horn to penetrate the target's eyes or even pierce the skull and brain. Chu Ci was feeling the sharp iron horn bull's changes, and her eyes were full of vigor and surprise. At that moment he used Morbius True Data and started to check the sharp iron horn bull's true data. Fey name: Obsidian Iron Wild Bull, Fey species, Horn species / Bull species, Fey grade, Bronze 10/10, Fey type, Metal, Fey quality, Fantasy eye abilities: Frowny Face Iron Horn. Enhanced metal is attached to the horn to launch a self-sacrificial piercing attack regardless of injuries. Sacrifice: when the contractor is injured, help the contractor share the damage. If the contractor is injured, it will feed back its vitality to the contractor. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face Pain Absorption. When receiving damage, absorb a portion of the damage and turn it into vitality. Annihilation Gaze. Arrogant battle consciousness and battle zeal drive its instinctive footsteps. The Obsidian Iron Wild Bull instantly transforms all the damage it receives in battle into a spiritual impact to counterattack the opponent. Under True Data, Lin Yuan raised his brows. The Sharp Iron Horn Bull should no longer be called the Sharp Iron Horn Bull but the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull. Lin Yuan's eyes lit up when he saw the Sharp Iron Horn Bull's exclusive skill after becoming a fantasy breed Obsidian Iron Wild Bull. Sharp Iron Armored Bull, this boorish fellow, was really something. However, after evolving into a fantasy breed Obsidian Iron Wild Bull, it was getting further and further away from being a defense-type Fey. However, when Lin Yuan observed the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's abilities, he found that they had been enhanced to different extents after becoming a fantasy breed. Its basic ability, Iron Horn, had increased its penetrative ability. The biggest change was the rare ability, Sacrifice, that it had comprehended at Elite. The Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's rare skill, Sacrifice, not only helped its contestant take damage, but it could also return its life force to its contestant. Lin Yuan could not help but look at the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull in a different light. As a defense-type Fey, the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull not only wanted to get its hands on a combat-type Fey but also a healing-type Fey. What a greedy bull. Defense-type Spirit Chi professionals were responsible for the team's defense and needed healing from healing-type Spirit Chi professionals the most. However, the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's Sacrifice ability could not only be used as a shield but also as a large moving health bag. Combined with the Bronze exclusive skill, Pain Absorption, it could absorb a certain amount of damage and convert it into vitality. This allowed the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's endurance to rise to a new level. However, the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's excellent replenishment system had become the sharpest sword it had comprehended after becoming a fantasy breed. Who knew how much damage the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull would suffer in a battle? When the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull was attacked, it could absorb a portion of the damage and automatically replenish its vitality. If the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull could not be killed in one blow, it would be an unkillable cockroach. According to the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's exclusive skill, Annihilation Gaze, if the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull suffered all the damage in battle and released a spiritual attack through its eyes, the Fey or Spirit Chi professional that was hit by the spiritual attack might become an idiot or even die. Lin Yuan found that the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull was simply a defense-type Fey that dabbled in offense and healing. However, these dabbles were all for the sake of being more reckless. Lin Yuan had already written down the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull in his notebook and blamed it for Chu Ci's recklessness. However, Lin Yuan realized that the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's rare ability, Sacrifice, could be used with the Vajra butterfly to restart his plan of nurturing a younger sister. Are you afraid of a younger sister that can counterattack and recover HP? However, Lin Yuan felt that his previous plan needed to be modified again. While Chu Ci was looking at Lin Yuan, she did not know that Lin Yuan was already planning the refined version of his plan of nurturing a younger sister. He wanted to read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 160. In Lin Yuan's opinion, with the fantasy breed Obsidian Iron Wild Bull and the Bronze/Legend Vajra Butterfly, Chu Ci would have few opponents in the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy and among her peers. At the same time, the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's exclusive skill, Annihilation Gaze, had given it a real attack method. It did not just rely on the horn impact to deal damage, which was a basic physical attack. Now, Annihilation Gaze allowed the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull's attack method to reach the spiritual level. If you hit me, I'll shock you. If you hit me again, I'll shock you again. But if I use pain to recover my HP, you'll hit me again. Then I'll use Annihilation Gaze to stare at you. An iron bucket was not scary. An iron bucket full of thorns that could automatically recover was scary. However, Chu Ci's current combat was more inclined toward an individual rather than a team's defense. Therefore, Lin Yuan's next choice of phase for Chu Ci would be more focused on team defense. After all, a true defense-type Spirit Chi professional would not be able to leave the team. Lin Yuan's little iron block is so strong after becoming a fantasy breed. I can feel that its strength has increased by more than 5 times. Lin Yuan's brows twitched. Was it really appropriate for such a reckless Obsidian Iron Wild Bull to have such a cute name? Now that the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull has evolved into a fantasy breed, not only has its strength increased, but other aspects have also undergone earth-shaking changes. You'll know when you fight with the senior who injured your arm in the live combat class. Chu Ci's eyes lit up. Then I'll try it during the live combat class. Senior Zhao Liang is the class representative for the Year 3 training class. If I can defeat him, I can get extra credits. Lin Yuan let out a soft snort. When the class representative for the Year 3 combat class, Zhao Liang, fights with the evolved Obsidian Iron Wild Bull, the evolved Obsidian Iron Wild Bull will definitely give him a good beating. Lin Yuan knew that Chu Ci's arm injury was not Zhao Liang's fault. In order to achieve the true training goal during the live combat class, one had to fight with all their might. Even if the teacher of the live combat class was watching, injuries were inevitable. But then again, Chu Ci was his little sister, who asked him to always have double standards when facing Chu Ci. Chu Ci had been delivering food to him on time every day for the past few days. However, when Chu Ci sent him 3 meals a day, she realized that he would only eat 1 meal, which was before he had to rest every day. Apart from that, he spent the rest of the time enhancing his small metal fei. Although Chu Ci had watched Lin Yuan endure hardships since he was young, she could not help but feel sorry for him when she saw him like this. It just so happened that it was already afternoon, and Lin Yuan had not eaten yet. Lin Yuan, let's eat outside. She originally wanted to say that she was going to Lin Yuan's favorite delicacies. Although she did not spend much time in Redbud City, it was inevitable that she would talk about it when she was with her classmates. Therefore, Chu Ci had inadvertently memorized some places. However, when she thought about it, she realized that Lin Yuan had never expressed what he liked or disliked since he was young. Every time he ate, as long as she picked up 2 more dishes with her chopsticks, Lin Yuan would almost never pick up this dish again and would leave it for her. In the past, when the two of them depended on each other, Lin Yuan would make sure to cook 2 dishes for every meal no matter how hard it was, even though one dish might be pitifully small and be gone after 1 or 2 chopsticks. Because Lin Yuan had always cared for her, Chu Ci did not remember much of the hardships she had suffered as a child. Instead, every scene in her memories was the sweetness of snuggling with Lin Yuan. At that moment, Lin Yuan also felt hungry. Previously, when he had been enhancing his phase quality, he had been wholeheartedly focused on it and did not feel hungry. Now that Chu Ci had promoted the Obsidian Iron Wild Bull into a fantasy breed, Lin Yuan's purpose of renting the breeding room in the Creation Master Association had been achieved. When he heard Chu Ci say that they were going to eat, Lin Yuan really felt that his stomach was empty and almost growling. Let's go. We'll say goodbye to Elder Ning, and then I'll take you to eat your favorite seafood. Chu Ci revealed a bright smile. No matter when, even when eating, Lin Yuan would always think of what he liked to eat first. When Lin Yuan and Chu Ci arrived at Elder Ning's office, they found that he was not there. Lin Yuan thought that if Elder Ning was not in the office at this time, he should be cultivating the spiral-toothed shark in the breeding room. Lin Yuan brought Chu Ci to the lobby on the first floor and found Ning Xuejuan, who was currently receiving the newcomers in the lobby. Ning Xuejuan was sitting on a chair, waiting for the newcomers to come out. Lin Yuan went forward and said, "Big Sister Xuejuan, I finished using the breeding room. Sister Xuejuan, I finished using the breeding room. Thank you for taking care of Chu Ci for the past few days. Chu Ci and I will be leaving first. Please send Elder Ning our regards." Ning Xuejuan smiled and nodded. "No problem. Elder Ning said that the spiral-toothed shark will evolve in the next few days, so he's focused on the breeding room. After Ning Xuejuan finished speaking to Lin Yuan, she made a call gesture to Chu Ci. Chu Ci immediately responded with a call gesture and flashed a bright smile. Lin Yuan's heart warmed when he saw that. For a girl of Chu Ci's age, other people's children were carefree and made good friends. Since Chu Ci started going to school, Lin Yuan had never heard anything about friends from her. Now, it seemed that Chu Ci and Ning Xuejuan had become friends, which finally made Lin Yuan feel relieved. Lin Yuan had always hoped that Chu Ci would not be too mature and could enjoy her childhood to the fullest. In fact, Lin Yuan had worked so hard for so many years because of this. Otherwise, he would not have insisted that Chu Ci go to school. After leaving the Redbud City's Creation Master Association's door, Lin Yuan took Chu Ci to the Spirit Food Pavilion, which was not far from the Creation Master Association. The Spirit Food Pavilion was an organization that was comparable to Ostrich Logistics. However, Ostrich Logistics was in the logistics business, while the Spirit Food Pavilion opened restaurants. The Spirit Food Pavilion had opened restaurants in the major cities of the Radiance Federation's 32 main cities. The meals in the restaurants were all cooked with various spiritual ingredients. Moreover, the Spirit Food Pavilion was very famous for a variety of fine wines that were very popular in the Radiance Federation. The Spirit Food Pavilion did not have delicacies cooked with ingredients from normal and elite phase. The lowest grade ingredients in the dishes were bronze grade, and some signature dishes even had platinum grade ingredients. However, if one were to eat dishes made with platinum ingredients, the price of a single meal would be sky high. Unless one was really rich, very few people could afford the price. Lin Yuan had brought Chu Ci here because the seafood here was very delicious and famous in the entire Radiance Federation. Another reason was that Chu Ci was now studying at the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy and had to train every day. This was a very precious golden period in Chu Ci's life, so Lin Yuan planned to customize a set of ingredients at the Spirit Food Pavilion for a long time. In the future, Chu Ci's 3 meals would be delivered by the Spirit Food Pavilion. Although the food made with nutritious spiritual ingredients would not have any effect if eaten for a few days, it would be different over time. Just as he walked to the entrance of the Spirit Food Pavilion, Lin Yuan saw a young couple quarreling. "Jiang Yan, let's break up. You've eaten too much." The girl punched the boy's head. "My name is Zhang Yan." The boy was stunned. "Which chapter? Which chapter?" The girl punched again. "Zhang. Also, you only ordered a plate of chicken wings with 4 wings. I only ate all 4 wings. How can I eat too much?" At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard someone calling him from behind. He turned around and saw that it was an acquaintance. "Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free." Chapter 161. Lin Yuan turned around and realized that it was Ling Wu, who had brought him to Redbud City to meet Ling Xiao. Ling Wu hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Lord Lin Yuan, are you here to eat at the Spirit Food Pavilion?" Lin Yuan nodded, unable to complain about how Ling Wu addressed him. Lin Yuan smiled at Chu Ci and said, "Lord Lin Yuan, are you here to eat at the Spirit Food Pavilion?" Lin Yuan nodded, unable to complain about how Ling Wu addressed him. Lin Yuan smiled and looked at Chu Ci. Ling Wu looked at Lin Yuan and Chu Ci, and his heart skipped a beat. As Ling Xiao's subordinate officer, Ling Wu did not know why Ling Xiao had brought Lin Yuan to the royal capital. However, based on Ling Xiao's attitude toward Lin Yuan, Ling Wu knew that Lin Yuan's identity was not simple. He hurriedly said, "Lord Lin Yuan's sister is a student of the Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy. The Redbud Intermediate Spirit Chi Academy's principal will also be there at noon. Why don't Lord Lin Yuan and your sister go together?" Lin Yuan shook his head. "I'll just bring my sister for a meal. I won't disturb you." Ling Wu nodded and did not say anything else. He took his leave and entered the Spirit Food Pavilion first. Chu Ci looked at Lin Yuan and said with a faint smile, "Lord Lin Yuan?" Lin Yuan looked at Chu Ci and said angrily, "Lord Lin Yuan?" Lin Yuan looked at Chu Ci and said angrily, "Lord Chu Ci, please speak." Chu Ci was a little surprised. Although she knew that Lin Yuan was very powerful, she had not expected him to be so well off after listening to the man's words. Although she was surprised, she was not overly surprised, as she had already been surprised when she saw Lin Yuan talking to Elder Ning in the Creation Master Association. Elder Ning was the vice president of Redbud City's Creation Master Association. Even though Ling Wu was City Lordess Ling Zhao's subordinate officer, he could not compare to Elder Ning. Lin Yuan had rejected Ling Wu because in his opinion, Chu Xi only needed to rely on her talent and strength to walk down the path step by step. Only by using strength to win respect would one obtain dignity. It was just like how Qing Rui had been crowned as the #1 creation master of the younger generation and given the title of Feng Yang when he was only a Class 2 creation master. Perhaps those who weren't in the creation master circle would feel envious, but just by looking at Long Tao's attitude toward Qing Rui, Lin Yuan knew that Qing Rui was just a clown in the eyes of true geniuses. Qing Rui was just a clown. After all, in a world where martial arts was respected, only strength was fundamental. He hoped that she could embark on a path full of brilliance in the future. In the great world, everyone was floating and sinking as they wished. However, in the end, only the righteous path of the human world was the only answer. After entering the Spirit Food Pavilion, he saw that the interior was decorated in an antique style. In the antique Spirit Food Pavilion, a mellow sound of a zither was being played, like rain falling on a banana leaf. At times, the sound of the zither was quiet and tranquil, and at other times the sound waves curled up in spirals. It gave people a comfortable feeling of seclusion. Even though Lin Yuan had lived 2 lives, he could not help but sigh. The Spirit Food Pavilion's decorations were so exquisite that they were almost impeccable. Lin Yuan and Chu Xi did not go to the private room upstairs. Instead, they sat down in the hall where there were already many diners around. They tasted the delicacies and ate the 5 grains. Although the bustling hall wasn't as quiet as the private room, there was a different kind of atmosphere. Lin Yuan pushed the menu to Chu Xi. She looked at the price and pushed the menu back to Lin Yuan, saying in a low voice, "Lin Yuan, this place is too expensive. Why don't we go somewhere else? The grilled fish you took me to last time was super delicious." Lin Yuan rubbed the hair on top of Chu Xi's head and handed the menu over. "I'm rich now. You can afford whatever you like." In the end, Chu Xi ordered for a long time and ordered 2 seafood soups made of bronze ingredients. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan took the menu and ordered a few delicacies made of silver ingredients according to Chu Xi's taste. Although the fish head in one of the steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers was a silver-level ingredient, the chopped chili was a gold-level ingredient. Upon seeing this, Chu Xi looked at Lin Yuan with some worry, somewhat afraid that he would spend too much money on this meal and live a tight life. Lin Yuan could understand Chu Xi's thoughts. After all, he had been frugal for the past decade or so. However, Lin Yuan wanted to change Chu Xi's thoughts. He naturally had to be frugal when he had no money, but if he did not spend it when he had money, it would be a waste to leave it there. At that moment, the dishes that Lin Yuan and Chu Xi ordered were served one after another. Just as the waiters of the Spirit Food Pavilion were serving the dishes, a little girl of around 5 to 6 years of age asked from a nearby table, "Mommy, if the little frog can't go home, will Mommy be worried?" The middle-aged woman next to the little girl was clearly the little girl's mother. At this moment, the middle-aged woman was picking up a dried pot bullfrog. When she heard the little girl's question, her hand froze in mid-air. She was a little embarrassed and didn't know how to answer. The waiter who served Lin Yuan the dishes quickly stepped forward to help. "No, their whole family is here." Lin Yuan, who was drinking the seafood soup, nearly choked on the prawns and the seafood. Such a child-destroying answer was too showy. Lin Yuan could see that she was enjoying the delicacies made of spiritual ingredients. Feeling her happy mood, Lin Yuan ate a lot more than before. After the meal, Lin Yuan ordered 2 months' worth of silver ingredients in the Spirit Food Pavilion for Chu Xi. At Chu Xi's current rank, eating delicacies made from silver spiritual ingredients was the most suitable. After ordering the set meal from the Spirit Food Pavilion, Lin Yuan took Chu Xi to the Treasure Pavilion in Redbud City to buy a large batch of metals and spiritual ingredients that the obsidian iron wild bull usually ate. There was also the energy nectar that the steel-patterned butterfly usually needed. After this purchase, Lin Yuan found that if he used a low-grade face storage box to store so many spiritual ingredients, it would be really inconvenient for Chu Xi to access them. Therefore, Lin Yuan helped Chu Xi order a diamond face storage box from Ostrich Logistics. Although Lin Yuan knew that a diamond face storage box was very expensive, he didn't expect the price to be so ridiculously high. If it weren't for the radiance dollars that Cheng Wu had left behind, Lin Yuan really couldn't afford this diamond face storage box for a while. Lin Yuan deliberately didn't promote the obsidian iron wild bull to silver because a bronze fantasy breed fey could better reflect its talent. Since Chu Xi wanted to pursue the path of a genius, he would follow it to the end. Now, Lin Yuan's purpose of meeting Chu Xi was considered completed. Then Lin Yuan carefully gave the bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to Chu Xi. Chu Ci, this silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar can wash away the impurities in the body and increase your potential. When you drink it, just drink it and it will wash away all the impurities in your body in one go. When Chu Ci saw that Lin Yuan was speaking very solemnly, she also remembered his words very seriously. Although Chu Ci didn't know what the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar was, just its ability to wash away the impurities in the body and increase one's potential was certainly not ordinary. Since Lin Yuan left the last time, Chu Ci had applied for a single dormitory in order to have enough private space to better improve her strength. Chu Ci planned to drink the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar first when she returned to the dormitory. After sending Chu Ci back to school, Lin Yuan went to visit City Lordess Ling Xiao. City Lordess Ling Xiao and Elder Ning were both experts who had helped Lin Yuan, so he was very respectful to them. After visiting Ling Xiao, Lin Yuan was about to leave Redbud City. Lin Yuan immediately called his master, the Moon Empress. Baiduan read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 162. In the Radiant Moon Palace's breeding room, the Moon Empress was mixing spiritual ingredients. As the Moon Empress worked smoothly, a bottle of light purple potion was concocted. The Moon Empress' hand shook, and the light purple potion turned into a fragrant mist that enveloped a diamond/epic lotus fay in the lotus pond. This lotus fay quickly absorbed the faint purple fragrant mist, and in a short while this diamond/epic fay was promoted to diamond/legend. However, when this lotus fay's quality had been promoted from diamond/epic to legend, only half of the fragrant mist had been used. The remaining fragrant mist spread out and was absorbed by the other lotus-shaped fays in the lotus pond. At that moment, the Moon Empress' cell phone on the table in the breeding room rang. It had been a long time since the Moon Empress used a cell phone. If the Moon Empress wanted to meet someone, she could just send a message. If others wanted to see the Moon Empress, they would have to see if they were qualified. The Moon Empress did not have many numbers saved on her cell phone. Generally, those who had numbers on her cell phone were all exceptional experts in the Radiance Federation. Of course, there were exceptions such as Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress took out her phone and revealed a gentle smile when she saw the caller ID. He answered the call. Lin Yuan, you haven't come to the Radiant Moon Palace to see teacher for some time? Lin Yuan said hurriedly. Teacher, I went to the Endless Forest for wild harvesting some time ago, and now I've come to the Redbud City. When I return to the royal capital, I'll go and see you. Lin Yuan did not tell the Moon Empress about the dimensional rift battle outside Millstone Town, as he was afraid she would be worried. Although Lin Yuan did not say it, the Moon Empress already knew about such a huge matter, especially when it concerned Lin Yuan. After finding out, the Moon Empress first marveled at Lin Yuan's strength. She had always known that Lin Yuan was extremely talented as a creation master, but she didn't expect him to also be so powerful as a combat-class spirit chi professional. While the Moon Empress was proud of Lin Yuan, she could not help but feel that she had neglected her duties as a teacher. As for Lin Yuan's safety, the Moon Empress was not worried. With the Mother of Bloodbath, Lin Yuan's path protector, around, even if a Class 3-dimensional rift opened, the Mother of Bloodbath would be able to bring Lin Yuan back unscathed. After chatting with the Moon Empress for a while, Lin Yuan got straight to the point. Teacher, I want to ask you for a favor. When the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan's words, she almost burst out laughing. During this period of time, the Moon Empress was worried to death. What should she do if her disciple was too independent and didn't rely on his master for anything? Even the Moon Empress, who rarely went on Star Web, did not find an answer when she searched for posts on Star Web because Lin Yuan was too independent. In the end, the Moon Empress posted anonymously to ask for help, but the answer she got almost caused her to crush her phone in anger. If Cold Moon hadn't realized that the Moon Empress was angry and helped her crush the cell phone first, the cell phone would have been crushed by the Moon Empress. Now that the Moon Empress heard that Lin Yuan had taken the initiative to look for her, she couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment as a master. Tell me, Master will do everything for you. The Moon Empress spoke very confidently because there was nothing in this world that couldn't be done after 10 months. He then told the Moon Empress about Chu Ci's situation and his thoughts. When the Moon Empress heard that, she couldn't help but support her forehead. She had been happy for nothing. His disciple didn't ask him for help because his disciple had encountered something, but because it was his disciple's younger sister. However, the Moon Empress replied solemnly after hearing Lin Yuan's words. Lin Yuan, don't worry. I'll let Cold Moon do it. After hanging up the phone, Lin Yuan ordered a Platinum Divine Travel Black Swallow on Star Web and rode it toward the royal capital. The first thing Lin Yuan did when he returned to the royal capital was to confirm the location of his store. During this time, Lu Jie had found quite a number of locations and sent the detailed information of each place to Lin Yuan. After Lin Yuan finally chose, he found two places that were rather good. One of them was the place where Cheng Wu had intercepted him when he had wanted to keep the appointment. The other place was in the bustling area of the royal capital and had a very good location. The choice Lin Yuan had to make was to choose a bustling area that was convenient for him to open a store. It had to be a beautiful scenery and a huge area, but it was a relatively remote suburb. As for how to choose, Lin Yuan still had to see the place to be sure. After Lin Yuan confirmed the store's location after returning to the royal capital, he would enter seclusion for a long time. The first thing he had to do was to fuse Chimey with that Twilight Willpower rune and let it evolve into a fantasy breed. Next, Lin Yuan had to put the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee in Red Thorn's digestive cavity and let it hatch. Then Lin Yuan would raise the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee to gold. With such strength, Lin Yuan had the possibility of climbing to the 100th floor of the Star Tower and climbing the Celestial Stairway through the promotion duel. If he climbed the Celestial Stairway and then fought on the Celestial Stairway, he would have a great chance of matching with the Radiance 100 sequence, the pinnacle experts of the Radiance Alliance's younger generation. At the same time, Lu Jie's Insect Queen had been placed in the Pure Land of Bliss in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Over the past few months, the Insect Queen, which had been on the verge of death, had mostly recovered. As long as Lin Yuan spent time healing it for a day or two, it could fully recover. At that time, Lu Jie could restore his former strength as the Radiance 100 sequence number 39, the Heart of Insect Swarm. At that moment, Lu Jie, who was helping Lin Yuan find the store's location in the royal capital, was standing there confronting someone. Lu Jie, you're really regressing. No matter what, you used to be a member of the Radiance 100 sequence. Now you're actually a Class 2 Creation Master's retainer. A man with a pair of peach blossom eyes roared at Lu Jie, his tone seeming to have indescribable anger. However, before the man with peach blossom eyes could finish speaking, a deep voice came from the side. This voice stopped the man with peach blossom eyes from saying what he wanted to say next. The man with the deep voice turned to look at Lu Jie and said, Lu Jie, Baihao has such a bad temper. Lu Jie, Baihao is just like a dog. When he found out that you were injured, he searched everywhere for you. But you disappeared without even saying a word, Lu Jie said. Baihao snorted and turned his head to avoid looking at Lu Jie. Lu Jie did not expect to encounter a former teammate. Before Lu Jie was injured, Lu Jie, Baihao, and Wang Fan always went out to train and do missions together. However, Lu Jie knew that he could not recover after being injured, so he was disheartened and left the royal capital. He said goodbye to his former identity as the Radiance 100 sequence number 39, the Heart of Insect Swarm, and became an ordinary down-and-out adventurer. However, Lu Jie, who had always been good-tempered, frowned at Baihao's words. While speaking, Lu Jie lowered his head and looked at the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest hanging on his chest. While speaking, Lu Jie looked down at the Class 2 Creation Master retainer crest hanging on his chest. 2 months ago, a youth had given him hope of a new life when he was in despair. This hope had allowed Lu Jie to find his value, his dream, his persistence, and his meaning again. Therefore, Lu Jie had sworn with the willpower rune and offered his future life to become a retainer knight. That was why Lu Jie swore an oath with a willpower rune to become a retainer knight. Baihao gritted his teeth and asked Lu Jie, "Has your insect queen been cured? Has your insect queen been cured?" Upon seeing Lu Jie shake his head, Baihao clapped his hands. Seeing Lu Jie shake his head, Baihao clapped his hands. After speaking, Baihao pulled Wang Fan, who wanted to say something but hesitated, and left. Wang Fan looked at Baihao and sighed. He wanted to say something but did not say anything. Baihao turned to look at Wang Fan and said very seriously, "Don't worry." Baihao turned to look at Wang Fan and said in a serious tone, "Wang Fan, how much money do you have?" Wang Fan took out his star web card and handed it over. There should be over 20 million Radiance dollars in the card. Baihao said as he took the star web card from Wang Fan's hand. "I've saved some money over the past 2 years, and I still have 32 million Radiance dollars in my star web card. Including the 20 million Radiance dollars in your star web card, we have over 50 million Radiance dollars in total. Let's see if we can cure his insect queen." Wang Fan already knew Baihao's temper, so he said helplessly, "You never know how to speak nicely. You have a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Aren't you afraid that you'll hurt Lu Jie when you clap?" Baihao immediately stopped talking. After a long while, he finally managed to say something. "He was the one who hurt me first. He didn't even say anything. He doesn't treat me like a brother at all. Wang Fan was speechless for a moment. When Lu Jie had gotten into trouble, the three of them had pooled money to buy spiritual ingredients for Bai Hao to evolve his Fei. Lu Jie no longer had the strength, and the savings in his star web card had all been pooled for Bai Hao. Wang Fan really did not know how he had lived for the past few years. At that moment Wang Fan heard Bai Hao mumble. In the future, before Lu Jie's insect queen is cured, I won't spend a single cent. I'll save it all for his insect queen treatment. Bai Hao had just finished mumbling when he let out a strange cry. Sigh. I can't reward the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess during this period. I don't know if I can keep my position on the leaderboard. Wang Fan rolled his eyes. Why is Bai Hao becoming more and more like a child? He's still watching the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess's live-streaming rewards every day. He's really hopeless. Baidu, read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 163. Lin Yuan sat on the divine travel black swallow's back and endured the feeling of his but being slapped. Lin Yuan could not help but have the thought of nurturing a flying Fei for transportation. Lin Yuan's current spiritual energy could form a contract with a normal Fei that did not consume much of his spiritual energy. However, Lin Yuan obviously would not leave his contract spot for a flying Fei for transportation. Lin Yuan was a creation master. If he nurtured a flying Fei from a young age, even if he did not form a contract and could not command the flying Fei to fight well, it would not be a problem for it to be used for transportation. Before leaving Redbud City, Lin Yuan entered the Spirit Lock spatial zone once. He found that in the past few months, the cinnabar sweet osmanthus in his Spirit Lock spatial zone had grown young and tender new leaves. Lin Yuan was most concerned about the cinnabar osmanthus haworthia. Although it still looked dry, he was pleasantly surprised to find that it had extended its roots and grown on the cinnabar sweet osmanthus's trunk. The cinnabar osmanthus haworthia's current behavior meant that it was starting to recover. The cinnabar osmanthus haworthia was only at gold now. After it recovered, if he could upgrade it to platinum, the cinnabar osmanthus haworthia would grow 1 to 3 fruits. Then the cinnabar osmanthus haworthia could grow 1 to 3 fruits, and he could also rely on eating the cinnabar osmanthus haworthia's fruits to increase his spiritual energy. Lin Yuan sat on the divine travel black swallow's back and looked at the mountains, rivers and white clouds. At first he felt that his heart was broadened, but after looking at it for a long time, he did not feel that these mountains and white clouds were very rare. Since Lin Yuan had nothing to do, he took out the insect queen, which had been recovering its damaged roots in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. This journey would take a few days. Lin Yuan thought that the insect queen was about to recover, so he might as well replenish its damaged roots in one go before meeting Lu Jie. In fact, Lin Yuan could heal Lu Jie's source-type life form very well because Lu Jie's contracted source-type life form was the insect queen. If it had been another Fei or source-type life form at platinum, Lin Yuan would not have been able to heal it. The insect queen was an extremely special source-type life form. In terms of forming a contract, the insect queen required a lot of spiritual energy, and the contractor could not form a contract with other source-type life forms or Feis. This was why Lu Jie had only formed a contract with one Fei, which was the insect queen. At the same time, as long as the insect queen source was damaged, Lu Jie would not have any other Feis to use. If another spirit chi professional source was damaged and could not be healed, he or she could still nurture another Fei. Although not being able to use a Fei would greatly affect one's talent, it wouldn't be to the extent of becoming an ordinary person. On the other hand, the source-type life form Lu of it. Lu had already comprehended the law rune, but his head still could not, the rune of the insect, dragon and worm insect and insect. Dragon Lu dragon, saint, of common dragon, of lean insect not, of e, insect, liang, Lu Wang of Lu of e not of, Wang rank. Before the insect queen's roots had been damaged, Lu Jie had spent plenty of resources to visit various creation masters in hopes of improving the insect queen's quality. Before the insect queen source was damaged, Lu Jie had spent a lot of resources to visit creation masters, hoping to raise the insect queen's quality. To the insect queen, all the spirit liquids concocted with spiritual ingredients were not as helpful as pure spirit chi. The insect queen was a life form that required extremely high purity of spirit chi. In an environment with high purity of spirit chi, even if the insect queen was on the verge of death, it could still rely on absorbing high-purity spirit chi to activate its body's hidden powerful self-recovery ability to recover its damaged source and even raise its quality. Without pure spirit chi, even the spirit liquids concocted by the most powerful creation master would not be able to activate the insect queen's hidden powerful self-recovery ability. This was also why Lu Jie had protected Cold Frost City and stalled the dimensional lifeforms for half an hour. After being seriously injured, the Bamboo Monarch, who was one of the 3 Class 5 creation masters, had to make a move. However, it still could not heal the insect queen's damaged source. It was because the Bamboo Monarch had used all kinds of spiritual ingredients to produce spirit chi, which had many medicinal properties that could recover the damaged source. However, these medicinal properties were not of much help to the insect queen's recovery. To the insect queen, the best medicine to recover its source was pure spirit chi. Although the spirit chi in the spirit liquids concocted by the Bamboo Monarch was also very pure, the purity was not enough to activate the insect queen's self-recovery ability. However, when Lin Yuan circulated the spiritual power in his body and transmitted the spirit chi to the insect queen, it was different. Lin Yuan could not produce pure spirit chi. Lin Yuan's ability was to purify the spirit chi in the world into pure spirit chi before injecting it into the phase body. To put it bluntly, Lin Yuan was a spirit chi transporter, but during the transportation process he would make the spirit chi very pure. A purple flesh cocoon appeared in Lin Yuan's hand. Lin Yuan circulated the spiritual power in his body, and a large amount of pure spirit chi was injected into the insect queen through Lin Yuan's hand. This purple flesh cocoon was beating like a heart, and it was like a bottomless pit that was absorbing the pure spirit chi that Lin Yuan transmitted over with an abnormally joyful emotion. 2 days later, Lin Yuan suddenly widened his eyes in shock. This was because he discovered that after the insect queen's damaged roots had recovered, its quality had actually risen from epic to legend. In other words, if Lu Jie combined his willpower rune with the insect queen, it would immediately become a fantasy breed Fae. By then, Lu Jie would have completely wasted the past 2 years. But compared to the insect queen's evolution into a fantasy breed, the 2 years of neglect were not considered a loss. It could even be said that after 2 years of silence, Lu Jie, who had returned with the platinum/fantasy breed insect queen, could be said to be a phoenix rising from the ashes and soaring into the sky. Lin Yuan used Morbius True data to check on the insect queen, whose damaged source had completely recovered. Fey name: Insect Queen, Fey species, Silkworm species/Queen insect species, Fey grade, Platinum 4 out of 10, Fey type, Spiritual, Fey quality, Legend abilities: Frowny Face Bayonet Beetle, a small beetle with black hard armor and 6 legs as sharp as blades. Shield Ladybug, a large ladybug with thick armor. Its hard carapace can withstand physical and energy damage. Plasma Caterpillar, a medium-sized caterpillar that contains a large amount of plasma. The plasma has a numbing effect and high electric shock damage. Lightning Gathering Moth, a small moth that can quickly gather lightning elements. A large number of lightning-gathering moths can gather super-powerful lightning cannons. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face Blast Recovery. The insect queen can choose to explode the insects it produces and recover a portion of the energy contained in the exploded insects' bodies. At a glance, Lin Yuan finally understood why Lu Jie could carry a platinum insect queen 2 years ago. He was honored as the Radiance 100 sequence number 39 and was honored as the Heart of Insect Swarm. Baidu read the latest chapter of the Imperial Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 164. The Insect Queen's ability acquisition was very special. The Insect Queen wouldn't obtain the corresponding ability like other phase or source-type lifeforms. The source of the Insect Queen's ability acquisition was to devour an insect species Fae and inscribe the insect species Fae's model into the Insect Queen's body. This insect species Fae that the Insect Queen absorbed would become the Insect Queen's ability. The Insect Queen could consume its body's energy in battle and rapidly reproduce a large number of insect species Faes that were inscribed with the genetic model. It was just like Lu Jie's Platinum Insect Queen's 4 abilities: Bayonet Beetle, Hidden Ladybug, Plasma Caterpillar, and Lightning Gathering Moth. These 4 insect species Faes were the genetic models inscribed in the Insect Queen's body. Lin Yuan could see that Lu Jie had put in a lot of effort to nurture the Insect Queen, especially the combination and selection of the Insect Queen's abilities. Lu Jie didn't choose the insect species Faes that were individually strong. Instead, he chose the insect species Faes that had a relatively simple genetic model and were easy to replicate. At the same time, These insect species phase with simple genetic models would also cause a qualitative change due to the increase in numbers. The insect queen could quickly produce 100 bayonet beetles, which had a very simple genetic model. If a group of bayonet beetles climbed onto another phase body, the insect queen would be able to produce 100 of them. If a group of bayonet beetles climbed onto another phase body, it would be like 6 sharp legs slipping. The hidden ladybug was a fae that was adept at defense. When defending, the hidden ladybug would open the insect plates on its back. When a few hidden ladybugs opened the insect plates, they would form a solid insect armor wall to protect the plasma caterpillar, which was adept at energy attacks but very weak. The plasma caterpillar's plasma didn't just have extreme lethality, but it also had a paralyzing effect. The paralyzed phase would suffer the bayonet beetle's merciless attacks. The lightning-gathering moth, which was inscribed with the platinum ability, was an insect species fae that flew agilely and consumed very little energy. A single lightning-gathering moth's lightning attack wasn't strong. However, when a large number of lightning-gathering moths gathered together and condensed lightning elemental mana, they could spit out destructive lightning cannons of the same tier, dealing massive damage. Moreover, the plasma from the plasma caterpillar could also help the lightning-gathering moths gather lightning elements quickly, reducing the charging time for a large group of lightning-gathering moths to spit out lightning cannons. It had to be said that Lu Jie's contracted source-type insect queen was already equivalent to fighting with a perfect combat system. The combination of the various insect species phase that the insect queen had spawned was like controlling an insect swarm to carry out a battle. Combined with the insect queen's exclusive skill, blast recovery, it could effectively reduce the insect queen's energy consumption. By detonating the severely injured insects, it could recover a lot of energy and produce new insects. On the other hand, blast recovery also gave the bayonet beetles, which were large in number but not strong individually, killing power. A single bayonet beetle might not cause much damage when it exploded on another fae, but when multiple bayonet beetles exploded together, it was enough to severely injure an equal grade fae and even threaten its life. Even a defense-type fae of the same grade might be able to withstand it, but if a hole was blasted open, allowing other bayonet beetles to burrow in, it would simply be a nightmare. In Lin Yuan's opinion, as long as any fae was nurtured in the right way, it would be a nightmare. Even if the nurtured fae might not be very strong, it would have a different effect in battle. However, the premise of Lin Yuan's idea was to have the ability to circulate spiritual power and evolve faes like Lin Yuan did. There was still nearly a day's journey to the royal capital, so Lin Yuan took out a fae that he had harvested in the endless forest from the leaf-shaped diamond fae storage box. There was still nearly a day's journey to the royal capital, so he took out a fae that he had plucked in the endless forest from the leaf-shaped diamond fae storage box. The petite green bamboo snake was extremely fast and adept at using its venomous fangs to cause damage. It was considered a rather good assassin-type fae. After Lin Yuan took out the green bamboo snake, he circulated the spiritual power in his body. A large amount of pure spirit chi frantically poured into the snake's body to strengthen it. After Lin Yuan took out the green bamboo snake, he circulated the spiritual power in his body. A large amount of pure spirit chi frantically poured into the snake's body to strengthen it. Soon he upgraded the green bamboo snake's quality to bronze/epic. After upgrading the green bamboo snake to bronze/epic, he stored it in the diamond fae storage box. If Lin Yuan wanted to open a fae store, he had to sell some high-quality faes to make a name for himself. To the spirit chi professionals, what could make them crazier than a high-quality bronze fae? High-grade faes might be precious, but Lin Yuan might be able to refine high-grade faes like gold for now, but he would require a lot of energy and time. Enhancing faes to platinum was something he couldn't do at the moment. When a fae was at bronze, the higher the quality, the more expensive it would be. Bronze faes were very cheap at normal and elite. However, if a bronze fae reached flawless, its price would surpass many low-quality silver faes. This was because a high-quality bronze fae would have a higher chance of being promoted to legend in the future. After upgrading to legend, the fusion of the willpower rune would give the fae a chance to evolve into a fantasy breed. Bronze/epic faes were the highest quality bronze faes currently available in the market. Every time an epic bronze fae appeared, it would be auctioned for a sky-high price in the Star Web's Rare Treasure Pavilion. Spirit chi professionals would always reserve some spiritual energy when contracting faes and wouldn't use all of it to fully contract the fae. On the one hand, many faes would consume a lot of resources to nurture. Even wealthy families wouldn't be able to afford such resources. Rather than wasting resources on 5 faes, it would be better to gather these resources and nurture one main Fey and two complementary Feys. On the other hand, the spiritual energy left behind by the Spirit Chi professionals was used after the Willpower rune. Many Spirit Chi professionals would choose to contract a low-grade, high-quality Fey to nurture again. This was because the lower the grade of the Fey, the higher its talent would be after evolving into a fantasy breed. Therefore, those who really fought for these high-quality low-grade Feys were mostly experts who had comprehended the Willpower rune but didn't have high-quality low-grade Feys. Perhaps some influential clans wanted to equip their outstanding juniors with high-quality low-grade Feys so that they would have a huge lead at the starting line. Therefore, whenever a bronze/epic Fey was released, it would cause a lot of people to fight for it. If Lin Yuan released a bronze/legend Fey, the entire Radiance Federation would probably be shaken, and it would cause an intense competition among the major factions. Lin Yuan didn't plan to release a bronze/legend Fey, at least for now. It would take him at least 5 days to evolve a Fey from bronze to legend. In Lin Yuan's opinion, what he needed the most was to increase his Spirit Chi occupation rank. As long as he increased his Spirit Chi occupation rank, the Feys he enhanced would become stronger, and his strength would also become stronger. After Lin Yuan enhanced the green bamboo snake, he didn't enhance other Feys and closed his eyes to rest on the divine travel black swallow's back. By the time Lin Yuan woke up, it was already morning. The divine travel black swallow had just arrived at the royal capital. After getting off the divine travel black swallow, Lin Yuan felt that half of his butt was numb. Lin Yuan first called Lu Jie and arranged a time to meet in the afternoon. Then he went up the Leaning Moon Mountain and went all the way to the Radiant Moon Palace. After arriving at the Radiant Moon Palace, Lin Yuan saw the silver-robed mystic moon at the entrance. Baiduan read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 165. When he saw that Mystic Moon was sweeping the silver stamen gold luster cache's fallen leaves on the ground in front of the Radiant Moon Palace, Lin Yuan went forward and spoke. "Senior Mystic Moon, long time no see." Mystic Moon was originally very happy to see Lin Yuan, but she was shocked by Lin Yuan's words. Xian Yu hurriedly took a step forward and bowed. "Your Highness, you can't do that. I don't deserve to be called senior by His Highness." Xian Yu's voice had always been clear and bright, and her personality was also exceptionally calm. However, when Lin Yuan addressed him as senior, he felt uncomfortable. Lin Yuan shook his head helplessly. The last time Tsang Yu said the same thing, it made Lin Yuan feel a little uncomfortable. At that moment, Mystic Moon handed him a bottle. Lin Yuan took the bottle and realized that it was filled with silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. This bottle was very big. If this bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar was poured out, it would probably be enough to fill 4 to 5 bowls. Lin Yuan raised his brows and looked at Mystic Moon in confusion. "Last time I said that I would treat your highness to some silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. After I said that, I went on a mission. Now that it's late autumn and the flowers of the silver stamen gold luster cassia have all grown, I took some and made this bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. I smelled it after it was done. It should be better than cold moons." After saying that, Xian Yu laughed heartily. At this moment, Tsang Yu had already left for Redbud City. If Tsang Yu was here, she would definitely expose Xian Yu without mercy. In order to personally make this bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Xian Yu had wasted countless silver stamen gold luster cassia flowers. At that moment, Mystic Moon, who was laughing brightly, heard the Moon Empress voice echoing behind him. When the Moon Empress sensed his arrival, she immediately got up and came to the Radiant Moon Palace's entrance. In the end, Mystic Moon handed Lin Yuan a bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. When she saw the bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar in Lin Yuan's hand, she was infuriated. "Xian Yu, go to Chef Supreme and help me get a spirit savory pig." Upon hearing the Moon Empress voice, Mystic Moon quickly turned around and bowed. "Yes, Moon Empress. I will go immediately." At that moment, Mystic Moon saw that the Moon Empress was holding a crystal bottle that was at least 3 times bigger than his. Although it was called a crystal bottle, it looked like a small bucket. It was filled to the brim with silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. At that moment, Mystic Moon saw the Moon Empress gritting her teeth and glaring at him. Her eyes seemed to be scanning the Black Dragon shotgun. Mystic Moon was a little confused, but he quickly followed the Moon Empress' gaze and immediately knew what was going on. Xian Yu cursed inwardly. She had bumped into the muzzle of a gun. He quickly turned around and went to help the Moon Empress get the spirit fragrant pig from Chef Supreme. When Lin Yuan saw the Moon Empress, he quickly greeted her. The Moon Empress immediately changed her expression and responded gently. Then he handed over the crystal bottle in his hand, which looked as big as the mystic moon, to Lin Yuan and said, "The crystal bottle is already 3 times bigger. This is the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar that I personally made. I also added quite a bit of lotus heart dew. It's much better than what Shen Yu made." The Moon Empress had already recorded Mystic Moon's name in her notebook. "My disciple hasn't been to the Radiant Moon Palace for half a month, and you actually dare to give something to my disciple before me? It's fine if you are giving it, but you actually clashed with my gift. You are truly infuriating me. Can't you give me another chance to show off in front of my disciple?" This time, Lin Yuan didn't reject the Moon Empress bottle of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar. It wasn't because Lin Yuan wanted to rely on the Moon Empress in the future, but because he had already treated the Moon Empress as a blood relative, bestowed by an elder. He didn't dare to refuse. This itself was a kind of respect and filial piety. However, with so much silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, it was unknown how many osmanthus flowers on the silver stamen gold luster cassia would be consumed. Lin Yuan looked at the silver stamen gold luster cassia on both sides of the Radiant Moon Palace and realized that one of the silver stamen gold luster cassia didn't even have a single silver stamen gold luster cassia. As for the other silver stamen gold luster cassia, there weren't many silver stamen golden luster cassia either. There was only a sparse layer of silver stamen golden luster cassia hanging on its branches. Lin Yuan and the Moon Empress arrived at the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace and had a question-and-answer session that they had not done in a long time. Lin Yuan could tell the Moon Empress everything that he did not understand during this period of time. The Moon Empress also answered every question. The Moon Empress' answer was very concise, and every word made Lin Yuan feel enlightened. At the same time, the Moon Empress imparted some new knowledge to him through questions. This question-and-answer session was a little longer than usual, and Lin Yuan had gained a lot through this question-and-answer session. During the question-and-answer session with Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress also sensed his improvement during this period through his questions. After the question-and-answer session, the Moon Empress poured a cup of scented tea for Lin Yuan. "Are you going to develop in the royal capital for the time being?" Lin Yuan nodded. "I wish to open a store in the royal capital to increase my creation master abilities. At the same time, I'm preparing to compete for the Radiance 100 sequence." The Moon Empress smiled after hearing Lin Yuan's words. She was very happy that Lin Yuan was staying in the royal capital. If Lin Yuan stayed in the royal capital, he would not be like Millstone Town or Redbud City, where he would not visit the Radiant Moon Palace for half a month. As a master and a senior, the Moon Empress finally understood why the Bamboo Monarch and the Chef Supreme would always have a smug expression whenever they talked about their disciples. The current Moon Empress was the same. The number of times she smiled when she saw Lin Yuan might be more than in a year. Seeing her disciples' growth made her proud and happy as a master. Since you wish to open a store, how can you do it without an assistant? In a while, you can pick one of the Radiant Moon Palace's spirit attendants to be your store's assistant. They can help you tend to the flowers and plants in the store. All of the Radiant Moon Palace's spirit attendants were prodigies among the creation masters. They were already Class 1 creation masters at such a young age, and the talented ones were even Class 2 creation masters. If such prodigies were to tend to the flowers and plants, it would simply be a waste of resources. Any of the Radiant Moon Palace's spirit attendants could open a store in the royal capital, and after a few years of development, it would be enough for the store to have a great reputation. However, if there was a spirit attendant to take care of the store, it would definitely save Lin Yuan a lot of trouble. The Moon Empress said to Kai Cha, who was brewing tea at the side, "Bring all the spirit attendants to the main palace for this empress. Let Lin Yuan choose his own assistant." Kai Cha quickly responded and went to carry out the task that the Moon Empress gave her. In a short moment, over a dozen spirit attendants wearing light yellow robes were already standing in the main palace. Every spirit attendant's eyes were filled with indescribable anticipation. After hearing about Kai Cha's news, all of the spirit attendants wished to be Lin Yuan's assistant. Lin Yuan was the Moon Empress' disciple. Just from the fact that Lin Yuan had been staying in the Radiant Moon Palace for such a long time and the Moon Empress' attitude toward Lin Yuan, it was obvious how much the Moon Empress valued Lin Yuan. Even the 2 Moon Envoys had to respectfully address Lin Yuan as Young Lord when they saw him. It could be said that the moment Lin Yuan became the Moon Empress' disciple, he was already firmly in the second seat of the Radiant Moon Palace. If they could become Lin Yuan's assistant, their status would be different, and they would be able to override their sisters who were also spirit attendants. In fact, their status in the Radiant Moon Palace might even be on par with the two moon envoys. These spirit attendants were all young ladies, and it was obvious that most of them had dressed up meticulously when they came. At this time, Wen Yu was holding a small amber bottle in her hand, but the amber bottle was already empty. At that moment, Wen Yu heard a voice that made her frown. "Why are you standing so close to the front, you sickly invalid? Hurry up and stand at the back." Wen Yu lifted her head and saw that the one who spoke was Jin Qi. "I am standing according to the spirit attendance ranking test sequence last year. Is there a problem?" Jin Qi immediately sneered and said, "In 1 month, it will be this year's spirit attendant ranking test. This year's spirit attendant ranking test will be held in a month. A sickly person like you might not even be able to become an upper spirit attendant, yet you still have the face to stand at the front?" After consuming the silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, Wen Yu's damaged roots had been healed, and she had regained her previous talent. In fact, this drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar had improved Wen Yu's aptitude a little. However, Wen Yu didn't tell all of this to her companions, who she had previously treated as sisters. Everything that Wen Yu had experienced during this period of time had made Wen Yu understand that these people in front of her weren't her friends. They weren't worthy of her giving any more feelings. Wen Yu had always been a person who stood aloof from worldly affairs, so she simply walked to the back. However, at that moment, Wen Yu felt that the small amber bottle in her hand was burning hot. Baiduan wanted to read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 166. Wen Yu clenched the small amber bottle in her hand tightly. Her heart was filled with indescribable gratitude. Wen Yu knew that the drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar in this small amber bottle had completely changed her fate. If Lin Yuan had not given her this drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, she knew that she was destined to be eliminated in the spirit attendant ranking test and hand over her position to someone else. With the drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar that Lin Yuan had given him, he would at least be able to maintain his position as a spirit attendant. Although they wouldn't be able to rank at the top, even if they were ranked last, as long as they were still spirit attendants of the Radiant Moon Palace, they would still be able to rank up. Furthermore, this drop of silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar had improved his physique. Every spirit attendant's aptitude was about the same. Wen Yu's strength had only been affected by the damage to her origin. Now that his aptitude had improved a little, he would be able to catch up to the other spirit attendants sooner or later. As Wen Yu walked to the back, she glanced at Jin Qi. He discovered that Jin Qi was looking at the entrance from the back hall to the main hall with a smile on his face. His face was beaming, and there was an indescribable anticipation in his eyes. Wen Yu could not help but sigh in her heart. Ever since Jin Qi knew that the Moon Empress had accepted a disciple who was around the same age as her, she had been having messy thoughts. Wen Yu had also reminded Jin Qi, but what she got in return was Jin Qi's revenge. Wen Yu knew that no matter which spirit attendant was selected, Jin Qi was destined to fail. That was because the conversation that night had been brought to Lin Yuan's ears by Autumn Wind. Even if Jin Qi dressed herself up and stood in the second position of the dozen or so spirit servants, she would not be able to do so. Jin Qi suddenly spoke to the spirit attendant in front of her when she arrived at the very back of the dozen or so spirit attendants. "Pan Yu, why do you have a wilted flower on your head?" The spirit attendant named Pan Yu immediately removed the little red flower from her hair. Although it wasn't completely withered, it was still somewhat listless. Pan Yu directly hid the red flower in her sleeve and then said with some annoyance, "I've seen so many flowers, but when I plucked you, you wilted. Shameless thing." When Jin Qi looked at Pan Yu, she felt that her entire person had become better. Pan Yu was more beautiful than her, and she stood there quietly. But as soon as he opened his mouth and heard Pan Yu's words, it would split open. Why did a beautiful woman have to have a mouth? How could she have been chosen with the way she behaved? Jin Qi was now full of confidence in herself. In terms of strength, she could only be ranked second. However, Pan Yu was destined to be incomparable to him when it came to dealing with people. Pan Yu would lose the moment she opened her mouth. At this moment, two figures appeared at the entrance of the rear hall. The woman was dressed in a long robe the color of moonlight. Her expression was cold, and her bearing was graceful. The young man was sunny and handsome, with a faint smile on his face, making him look especially amiable. As the two figures walked into the main hall of the Radiant Moon Palace, all the spirit attendants bowed in unison. Greetings to the Moon Empress and Lord Lin Yuan. Although the spirit attendants bowed, they knew that if they were chosen, it would be like a carp leaping over the dragon's gate. They would never be the same again. Therefore, when they looked at the ground, their eyes were filled with nervousness and anticipation. Perhaps Lin Yuan was just casually choosing a person and was so indifferent. However, to these spirit attendants, it was considered the greatest opportunity in their lives. The Moon Empress turned to look at Lin Yuan and said softly, "Lin Yuan, choose one yourself. Lin Yuan, choose one yourself. If you feel that one spirit attendant isn't enough, then choose two." The Moon Empress' words made the spirit attendants below delighted, but they immediately heard the young man's reply. "Teacher, I will just choose one." Lin Yuan only wanted to open a store, so one spirit attendant was already enough. If there was another spirit attendant, Lin Yuan felt that it wasn't necessary. The spirit attendants below all lifted their heads. Each of them had a different expression, but all of them had a kind of heartfelt anticipation. Lin Yuan looked at these spirit attendants and realized that among them, the only spirit attendant that he was familiar with and had spoken a few sentences with was the spirit attendant named Wenyu. Lin Yuan had a rather good impression of Wenyu, so he simply pointed at Wenyu. Wenyu was standing at the back, and when Lin Yuan appeared, her hand that was holding onto the amber bottle tightened. It would be a lie if Wenyu said that she wasn't nervous, and it would be a lie if she said that she didn't want to be chosen by Lin Yuan. However, at the same time, Wenyu really wanted to thank Lin Yuan personally. In the past, the person Wenyu was most grateful to was the Moon Empress, as she had helped Wenyu establish her life. However, to Wenyu, Lin Yuan was added to the list. This was because Lin Yuan had saved her established but shattered life, allowing the shattered foundation of her life to become even more solid. Now that Lin Yuan was pointing at her, Wenyu felt as though all the strength in her body had vanished. Her mind was empty. There was surprise, excitement, and a little disbelief. However, there was an indescribable sense of steadiness. If she became Lin Yuan's assistant, she wouldn't have to thank Lin Yuan anymore. Instead, she would use her actions to repay Lin Yuan's kindness in the process of becoming his assistant. When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan pointing at Wenyu and choosing her assistant, she immediately said, "The chosen one stays behind. The other spirit attendants can go and do whatever they need to do." The other spirit attendants were at a loss because no one had expected Wenyu to be selected. Among them, the one who was the most shocked was Jin Qi. Jin Qi had always been very confident in herself. Although she had thought that she might not be selected, she never thought that it would be Wenyu. But at this moment, Jin Qi knew that she didn't even have the right to be jealous. The moment Wenyu became Lin Yuan's assistant, Lin Yuan's and Wenyu's statuses were as different as heaven and earth. If Wenyu wanted to take revenge on him, she could find a reason to expel him from the Radiant Moon Palace. Jin Qi felt that all her expectations and fantasies had dimmed. Just as Jin Qi walked out of the Radiant Moon Palace in a daze, he heard a voice that could tear him apart. "Find more reasons for everything you do. If you persist, you will become depressed." After hearing the words that made her voice crack, Jin Qi turned around and saw the calm Pan Yu. Before Jin Qi could get angry, she saw Pan Yu's calm expression and couldn't help but ask, "Aren't you disappointed at all?" Pan Yu rolled his eyes at Jin Qi and chuckled. "Disappointed my foot. As long as I can look at those energetic fellows on Star Web, my life will be complete." When Jin Qi heard Pan Yu's strange laughter, she felt even worse. After Lin Yuan chose Wenyu, the Moon Empress gave some instructions and returned to the inner palace. There was nothing the Moon Empress didn't know about in the Radiant Moon Palace, but she had never bothered about Wenyu's matters. This was because wherever there were people, there would be society, and wherever there was society, there would be conflicts. This was already the case in a place with ordinary people, let alone in the Radiant Moon Palace where every spirit attendant was a prodigy. The struggles among the spirit attendants had always been a pool of clean water on the surface, but there was a turbulent undercurrent underneath. However, it was precisely because of this that the prodigies could be washed out by the great waves to produce true pillars. Read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 167. Lin Yuan had lunch with the Moon Empress at noon. After the meal, Lin Yuan took Wenyu down the Leaning Moon Mountain and prepared to go to the place where he had agreed to meet Lu Jie. At that moment, Lin Yuan was fiddling with his phone and preparing to book a flying fei. Without a flying fei that he could ride, it was really inconvenient for him to go anywhere. Just as Lin Yuan was fiddling with his cell phone, Wenyu tilted her small head and secretly glanced at it, and her eyes lit up. At that moment, Wenyu said softly, "Your Young Highness, I have ready-made flying feis here. You don't have to book them on the star web. After saying that, Wen Yu mobilized her mental power and summoned a large bird that was about 4 meters long and had a wingspan of 6 meters. Lin Yuan saw that this huge bird looked rather handsome. It was covered in pure white feathers that even had a faint luster. This luster looked like scattered sunlight. Lin Yuan used true data to check and found that this large bird was a silver sunlight egret. Among the avian fays, heron fays were relatively rare, and they had great potential. When they matured, most of them would have extraordinary combat power. However, there was an exception among the heron species fays, and that was the sunlight egret. The sunlight egret was a fay that did not have much offensive ability. The sunlight emitted from its body could soothe one's mind, and most of the abilities it had comprehended were to increase its speed. The sunlight egret was a very high-quality flying fay that could be ridden. Sunlight egrets were occasionally sold in the treasure pavilion, but they were all bought at a high price. This was because the sunlight egret was very large. At the bronze level it could grow to 2 meters long, and its wingspan was 4 meters long. At the silver level, for example, Wen Yu's sunlight egret could grow up to 4 meters long with a wingspan of 6 meters. Very few flying-type silver fays could grow to such a size. If the sunlight egret reached the gold rank, it would not be a problem for it to carry dozens of people on its back. In addition, the sunlight egret had a handsome posture and looked elegant when it flapped its wings. Therefore, the sunlight egret could be considered a luxury flying fay that could be ridden. He did not expect her to contract such a fay. Ordinary creation masters would not choose to contract a sunlight egret if they wanted to nurture it. If a creation master nurtured a flying fay for transportation, it could be piloted perfectly without the need for a contract. After all, the sunlight egret's biggest advantage was that they were good-looking, fast, and good at transportation. It had almost no combat ability, so it would be a waste to contract it. When Wen Yu saw that Lin Yuan was observing the sunlight egret, she spoke. "Your Highness, this sunlight egret is the first fay I chose when I became a spirit attendant. I don't like to fight and just want to be a good creation master. Therefore, most of my contracted fays aren't adept at fighting." Upon hearing her words, Lin Yuan nodded. Everyone had the right to decide the path they wanted to take. Wen Yu, who didn't choose the path of a combat class spirit chi professional, was different. Instead, he chose to put all his energy into learning as a creation master. His growth as a creation master was much faster than other creation masters who were multitasking. Wen Yu had never been good at fighting. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been bullied by the other spirit attendants in the Radiant Moon Palace if she had been a little stronger. Seeing that this sunlight egret was already flawless at silver, Lin Yuan could see that Wen Yu's talent as a creation master was very powerful. "Then let's go. I've long heard that the sunlight egret is a very comfortable flying fay. I haven't sat on one before." Lin Yuan's face revealed a sunny smile. As long as he didn't ride the divine travel black swallow, he was willing to ride any flying fay. He didn't want to experience the feeling of being slapped on the butt for a few days a third time. When Wen Yu saw the smile on Lin Yuan's face, her eyes immediately flashed with excitement. And she was indescribably happy that she could help Lin Yuan. When Wen Yu's first fay had chosen to contract this sunlight egret, many spirit attendants had laughed at her. This was because most of the other spirit attendants had chosen some fays that were adept at fighting to nurture. Although Wen Yu's fay affinity was not as good as those combat class spirit chi professionals, she had a good affinity with flying fays. However, Wen Yu's affinity with the flying type fays among the support type fays was also considered pretty good. There were also many fays that were extremely adept at combat. However, apart from this sunlight egret, the other two contracted fays were also fays that were only helpful to creation master's abilities. Nevertheless, she felt that it was the right decision to contract and carefully nurture the sunlight egret. Riding on the sunlight egret's back was really very comfortable. Lin Yuan silently complained. This sunlight egret's comfort level was many times better than the divine travel black swallows. On the sunlight egret's back, Lin Yuan took out his cell phone and flipped to the forum website that he had always visited when he couldn't feel the world's spirit chi. After calculating the time, he realized that it had been nearly 3 months since he had last been on this forum. As a result, he found that he had a lot of unread messages, most of which were from that silly netizen who said he had been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Lin Yuan looked at the record. This little netizen wants to argue with me. I'm not Lin Yuan. Weren't you bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider? Why are you still so energetic? Aren't you tired of greeting me 3 times a day? I hate spiders the most. No, you said I had to apologize to you. Otherwise, you'd be bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider. Lin Yuan secretly raised his brows. Wasn't it just a joke? I haven't logged onto the forum for 3 months, and you actually replied within seconds. How much hatred do you have? However, there was no way he would apologize. As for the ghost shadow-bristled spider wanting him, he would have to find it first. Being bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider could be considered a form of luck. I'm not Lin Yuan. If you answer my question correctly, I will apologize. I hate spiders the most. Ask. I'm not Lin Yuan. Why can frogs fly? I hate spiders. I'm not Lin Yuan. It's because the frog ate a flying biscuit. I hate spiders. I'm not Lin Yuan. Why can snakes fly? I hate spiders. I'm not Lin Yuan, because a snake ate a flying frog. I hate spiders. I'm not Lin Yuan. Why can eagles fly? I hate spiders the most, because the eagle ate a flying snake. I'm not Lin Yuan. No. I hate spiders. I'm not Lin Yuan, because eagles can fly. On the other end of the phone, the braised egghead was yelling in anger. She was so angry that she tore off the beheadgear on her head and threw it on the ground. Suddenly an idea came to her mind. You asked me a question, so I can ask you a question too. I hate spiders the most. If there's an extremely beautiful woman and an extremely ugly woman being kidnapped at the same time, which one do you save? If you and an ugly girl are kidnapped at the same time, which one do you save? The beautiful girl will marry you, and the ugly girl will give you 100,000 federal coins. You can only save one. I'm not Lin Yuan. I don't want to answer this question. I hate spiders the most. Hurry up and tell me. I'm not Lin Yuan. It doesn't matter if she's rich or not. I just like ugly ones. I hate spiders the most. Lin Yuan didn't care about the idiotic netizen who claimed to have been bitten by the ghost shadow-bristled spider and immediately logged out of the forum. Baidu immediately read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Bookhouse for free. Chapter 168. Along the way, Lin Yuan corrected the way when you addressed him. It would be too strange if when you still called him young lord outside. Lin Yuan wasn't the only one who found it strange. If passers-by heard it, they probably wouldn't take it seriously and would only think that they had encountered a Chinibyu. He looked at him in disdain and silently cursed him as a lunatic. Soon, the Sunlight Egret arrived at the rendezvous point. They got off the Sunlight Egret, and when you used her spiritual energy to put it away, Lin Yuan immediately saw Lu Jie, who was standing not far away, and a middle-aged man with a crew cut was standing next to him. This middle-aged man had a flat face and a crew cut. When Lin Yuan looked over, he nearly blurted out, "Brother crew cut?" Lin Yuan couldn't help but recall a joke from his previous life. Whether the desert was chaotic or not, Flat Top had the final say. When Lu Jie saw Lin Yuan, he immediately greeted him with a smile. "Young Master Lin Yuan, long time no see." Lin Yuan looked at Lu Jie and felt that he was much more spirited than he had been 2 months ago. Previously, Lu Jie had an air of decadence about him. But now that air of decadence had been swept away, making Lu Jie look a lot younger. When Lu Jie saw Wen Yu, he also nodded in greeting. Wen Yu quickly returned the greeting. When she saw the Class 2 Creation Master's retainer crest hanging on Lu Jie's chest, she knew that he was Lin Yuan's retainer knight. He was Lin Yuan's assistant in name, but in the end, their relationship was not as close as a retainer knight. Previously, she had discovered that Lin Yuan did not have a Creation Master crest on his chest. This discovery made her understand that Lin Yuan was a very low-key person. Lin Yuan smiled and extended his hand toward Lu Jie. As Lu Jie looked at Lin Yuan's outstretched hand, his eyes flashed with excitement, surprise and peace of mind. Lu Jie waved his hand and held Lin Yuan's hand tightly. Lu Jie immediately understood what Lin Yuan meant when he stretched out his hand. When Lin Yuan had said that he could heal the Insect Queen, he had shaken his hand to make the promise. Now that Lin Yuan had extended his hand again, it meant that the Insect Queen had recovered. Lu Jie hurriedly restrained his ecstasy and introduced the man with the crew cut standing at the side to Lin Yuan. "Lin Yuan, this is the owner of this land." Brother Flattop looked at Lin Yuan and went straight to the point. "Let's go in first. See if you're satisfied with this piece of land. If you decide to take it, we'll discuss the price." Brother Flathead spoke very sincerely. It was obvious that he was in a hurry to sell this piece of land. Lu Jie had already shown Lin Yuan the information on this land. Based on the information alone, Lin Yuan liked this land very much. Lin Yuan, Lu Jie and Wen Yu followed Bro Flat Top into the somewhat dilapidated door. After entering the door, Bro Flat Top hurriedly said, This place used to be a holiday villa before the Spirit Chi awakening. However, after more than 100 years, most of the facilities inside are old, and many things have been moved away. Brother Flat Top was a little embarrassed when he said that. Logically speaking, he should have arranged for these things to be dismantled in advance. However, it would cost a lot of money to dismantle so many old facilities. Dismantling these facilities was actually not difficult. What was difficult was actually to excavate the foundations of these facilities after dismantling the facilities. This was the big project. At this moment, when you suddenly spoke. If you come in, regardless of whether you live here or not, everything inside will be dismantled and rebuilt. When you said this, she looked at Brother Flat Top, causing Brother Flat Top to smile awkwardly. Lin Yuan looked at the scene in front of him, although the old facilities were very eyesore. Although the old facilities in front of him were an eyesore, if he bought this land, he did not intend to keep these old facilities. Since everything had to be rebuilt, he did not care much about these old facilities. The key was the environment. The area of this land was huge and there was a small artificial lake next to it. It could even be said that this land could be used to build a manor. Upon seeing that Lin Yuan did not speak and continued to look at the scenery inside, Brother Flat Top could not sit still and said, "This land is qualified to build a guild club. This piece of land has the qualifications to build a guild club. The area of this piece of land is more than twice the area occupied by those A-grade guild clubs." Someone had previously considered buying this land to build a guild club. However, at this point the Flat Top Bro couldn't continue. After the person who had previously considered buying this land to build a guild club looked at this land again, he gave up after thinking about it. The reason was that this land was too big, and the guild club could not afford to develop it. However, Brother Flat Top did not want to sell this land separately no matter what. This was because this land could only be said to have a large area and good scenery. Once it was dismantled, it could no longer be sold at a price. In fact, Brother Flat Top also knew that buying this land was equivalent to buying an empty space with nothing. Just the price of this land was not cheap. If he wanted to develop this land again, he did not know how much money it would cost. Lu Jie followed beside Lin Yuan and said, "Lin Yuan, in terms of area, this land is definitely the first choice. Lin Yuan, in terms of land area, this piece of land is definitely the first choice and the environment is very good. However, if you want to build on this land, it won't be a small sum." Lin Yuan nodded. If this land was to be rebuilt, it would indeed cost a lot. However, Lin Yuan was not short of money now, so there was no problem if he wanted to build on this land. Moreover, Lin Yuan had the idea of forming a guild club, but he had not made up his mind yet. If he bought this land now, even if he wanted to form a guild club in the future, the place would be enough no matter what. At the same time, Lin Yuan's contracted phase were Genius, Chimey, Red Thorn, Blackie, and the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly. Lin Yuan placed them in the Spirit Lock spatial zone most of the time. However, Blackie, the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly, and Genius were already stuck in Lin Yuan's level. Therefore, there was no longer any improvement in the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Therefore, he might as well release them and let them feel the blue sky and white clouds under this boundless world. Lin Yuan would nurture many more Fays in the future, and he might keep some of the extremely outstanding Fays for himself. Lin Yuan could not always keep these Fays in the Diamond Fay storage box. With such a large piece of land, the Fays that Lin Yuan nurtured would also have a place to reside. For example, the Radiant Moon Palace on the Leaning Moon Mountain had some rare Fays playing around everywhere. This could be called a paradise on Earth. When Brother Flat Top saw that Lin Yuan still did not say anything, he felt even more uncertain. Brother Flat Top was really anxious to sell this piece of land. This was because he now needed money to nurture his son so that he would not be left behind by his peers because of resources. He was the beloved son of his parents. He must have a far-reaching plan. Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 169. If a combat class Spirit Chi professional wanted to grow, they would need a lot of resources. If they could not keep up with the resources, they would waste their talent and affect their growth. There were also some geniuses in this world who had slow progress because they did not have enough resources. For example, even if Chu Ci was talented enough, she might not even have the chance to go to school without Lin Yuan. The flat-top man's aptitude was relatively ordinary, but his ancestors were from a wealthy family. However, they were now in dire straits. Although the glory of the past had declined, there was still such a large piece of land left. After being in society for a long time, the flat-top man naturally understood the principle of strength being respected. His son had been talented since he was young. He was now studying at the Royal Capital's Spirit Chi Vocational University and was also a member of the Key class. Not long ago, his son had been fancied by a B-class guild club, so he planned to sell the land left by his ancestors and fully nurture his son. As long as his son became a powerful combat class Spirit Chi professional, it was possible to recreate his family's former glory. Wenyu had been watching the flat-top man's nervous and hesitant expression. In fact, given her understanding of Lin Yuan, she knew that Lin Yuan had really taken a fancy to this land after looking at it for such a long time. Otherwise, given Lin Yuan's character, if he did not like this land, he would have long gone to look elsewhere. Therefore, when you walked in front of the flat-top man and said calmly, "This land of yours is not easy to sell. This land of yours is not easy to sell." When the flat-top man saw that Lin Yuan had not spoken, he was not confident. Now that he heard Wenyu speak, the smile on his face froze. Wenyu had been carefully observing the flat-top man's expression. Now that his expression had changed so obviously, the corners of Wenyu's mouth revealed a smile. Wenyu's smile was very gentle, but it was not the case in the flat-top man's eyes. The flat-top man only felt that Wenyu's smile was 30% cold, 30% mocking and 40% indifference. This 30% coldness, 30% mocking and 40% indifference added up to one meaning: she did not want to buy the land. The flat-top man looked at Wenyu with some anger and almost blurted out, "You bad woman." Wenyu did not know that the flat-top man's heart had started to play a movie. Wenyu cleared her throat and said, "You know the reasons why this piece of land isn't easy to buy. Firstly, the land is too big and very few people would buy such a large piece of land to develop. Secondly, this piece of land isn't considered close to the royal capital. Even if you ride on a silver avian fay, you will need at least half an hour to reach the royal capital. Thirdly, it will cost a lot of money to dismantle so many old facilities here." As Wenyu spoke, Brother Flattop's expression turned uglier with every sentence she said. At this moment, Brother Flattop was just short of transforming into a groundhog and yelling at the empty space, "Ah!" After taking a closer look, Lin Yuan discussed with Lu Jie and decided to buy this piece of land. Lin Yuan had his eyes on two pieces of land previously. Although they could both be used to build shops, the piece of land in the royal capital's bustling section was truly too small compared to this piece of land. The piece of land in the bustling section of the capital couldn't even compare to 1% of this piece of land. In fact, this was reasonable. It was unrealistic to want to buy such a large piece of land in the capital's bustling area. Therefore, after weighing the pros and cons, Lin Yuan still felt that this piece of land was more suitable for him. Just as he was about to negotiate the price with Brother Flattop, he saw her standing there with an aggrieved expression. Wenyu calmly said to Brother Flattop indifferently, "The price you just mentioned is still unreasonable. If you still sell it at this price, I don't know how long you'll have to sell it." Brother Flattop gritted her teeth and said, "The price you just mentioned is still unreasonable, 8 million radiance dollars." Upon hearing that, Wenyu shook her head calmly. "Not only do we have to dismantle these old facilities, but we also have to fill in the ground and compact it. Look at how many old facilities you have. If you have 8 million radiance dollars, you have to help us dismantle these old facilities." In the end, Brother Flattop was about to cry, gritted her teeth and spat out blood. 7,500,000 radiance dollars. "I won't sell it for any less." Lin Yuan was a little dumbfounded. He did not expect Wenyu to have this talent in bargaining. Wenyu spoke in a gentle and soft voice, but Brother Flattop was almost in tears from the bargaining. This bargaining was simply too powerful. Lin Yuan could not help but want to complete the joke he had seen in his previous life. Flattop with white hair and a silver cloak. "I'm the fiercest in the desert continent. I'm invincible in the world. I just don't dare to go to the East continent." Lin Yuan and Lu Jie had already discussed this piece of land. It was just right to buy it for 12 million radiance dollars. If it was more than 12 million radiance dollars, it would be a loss. Previously, Brother Flattop had given Lu Jie 10 million radiance dollars, which was already a profit according to the market. However, after chatting with Brother Flattop for a while, Wenyu actually lowered the price to 2,500,000 radiance dollars. According to the price that Wenyu had negotiated, buying this piece of land would definitely be a profit. In fact, although Brother Flattop had lowered the price, she was not stupid. Brother Flattop had been unwilling to lower the price, so she had not been able to sell it for 2 years. However, her son had grown up and urgently needed radiance dollars to nurture Faze. In order not to delay her son's talent, she could only helplessly sell this piece of land at a lower price. Otherwise, according to the Radiance Federation's news, this piece of land would not be able to be sold when the dimensional rift became active in a few months. In the end, Lin Yuan and the bro Flat Top sold the land for 7.5 million Radiance dollars. When you suddenly whispered to Lin Yuan, "Actually, if we say that we won't buy it this time to scare him, I can still bargain for at least 100,000 Radiance dollars." Lin Yuan felt that she was simply too strong. Although Wen Yu's contracted Fei did not possess combat ability, she was a goddamn genius in the internal affairs department. In the afternoon, Lin Yuan took Xaning, Lu Jie, and bro Flat Top to go through the corresponding procedures. From then on, the owner of this land was officially Lin Yuan. Then, under Lin Yuan and Lu Jie's somewhat distrustful gazes, Wen Yu took on the task of rebuilding the mansion. It was obvious that this piece of land needed to be remodeled before it could be livable. At that moment, Lin Yuan brought Lu Jie to the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association to rent a breeding room. He planned to evolve Chimey into a fantasy breed in the breeding room and hatch the acid corrosion queen bee to enhance it. Lin Yuan and Lu Jie entered the breeding room. With a flip of his hand, Lin Yuan took out Lu Jie's legend insect queen. The moment Lin Yuan took out the insect queen, Lu Jie's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Baidu was the first to read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 170. When Lin Yuan took the insect queen out of the spirit lock spatial zone, Lu Jie immediately sensed it. Upon seeing the insect queen that he had not seen for a long time, Lu Jie instinctively felt the insect queen's attachment to him, as well as its longing and joy. If it weren't for the hardships of the past 2 years that caused him to fall from the sky to the bottom of the valley, turning him from a proud son of heaven to an ordinary person, he wouldn't have realized that sometimes, not forgetting one's original intentions was the only answer. These 2 years of settlement had allowed Lu Jie to shine in the limelight and also to live in the lowly. His mind had long since become strong. If his mind had not been as hard as iron, Lu Jie's tears would have instantly rolled down from his eyes when he felt the insect queen's intimate spiritual waves. Lu Jie could not forget how he had felt the insect queen's injuries worsening, and its spiritual energy weakening until it was on the verge of death. Although Lu Jie knew that Lin Yuan had healed the insect queen the moment he shook hands with him, he still couldn't believe it. However, when he saw the insect queen in perfect condition and communicating with him with spiritual energy, Lu Jie could not help but have mixed feelings. Lu Jie could not help but feel all sorts of emotions. Before he could savor the joy of this reunion, he was shocked to find that the insect queen's quality had actually increased from epic to legend. Lu Jie trembled with excitement and looked up at Lin Yuan. He wanted to say something but his throat could not even make a sound. No one knew better than Lu Jie how difficult it was to improve the source-type insect queen's quality. The insect queen's quality improvement required extremely pure spirit qi, which was several times purer than the spirit qi needed to restore the insect queen's damaged roots. However, even the Class 5 Creation Master Bamboo Monarch could not restore the insect queen's damaged roots' spirit qi purity. Lin Yuan was probably the only one in the world who could do it. Therefore, only Lin Yuan could improve the insect queen's quality from epic to legend. When Lin Yuan saw that Lu Jie was so excited that he could not speak, he could not help but smile brightly. He reached out and patted Lin Yuan's shoulder. After this, you and the insect queen should be reborn. The Radiance Hundreds people have been looking forward to the return of the Radiance Hundred sequence number 39, the Heart of Insect Swarm. What Lin Yuan said was a sore spot that Lu Jie had never dared to touch before. This was because every time he saw on Star Web how the Radiance Federation's people called the Radiance Hundred sequence number 39 Heart of the Insect Swarm, a hero, and how they looked forward to his return, he would always be shocked. Lu Jie, whose hopes had been dashed back then, only felt powerlessness and pain. Lu Jie wished he could return to the past, controlling the swarm of insects to dominate the competition. But all of this longing was like a mottled shadow in an illusory dream. Lu Jie had never regretted resisting the invasion of dimensional creatures outside Frost City. At the same time, Lu Jie comprehended a willpower rune while commanding the source-type life form, the Insect Queen, to fight against the dimensional life forms while feeling the fervor of the insect swarm. However, the Insect Queen's origin had been damaged to the point where it was on the brink of death. This made Lu Jie feel that comprehending this willpower rune was extremely ironic. But now, everything seemed to be the best choice in time. He knew that as long as he fused the willpower rune with the Insect Queen, it would evolve into a fantasy breed. He would also truly be reborn and announced to the world. Me, Lu Jie. The Radiance 100 sequence number 39 Heart of Insect Swarm is back. Lu Jie knew that everything he had and all the glory he would have in the future was given to him by this young man. It was this youth who had ignited the light of hope, and now, with a wave of his hand, he had changed the light into a sun. Lu Jie's gloomy heart was coated with a layer of gold by the warm sun. Lu Jie was still so excited that he could not say a word. He just looked at Lin Yuan with a firm gaze and bowed deeply. This etiquette was much lower than the etiquette that retainer knights bowed to creation masters. To Lu Jie this was not a gesture of gratitude but a gesture of faith. Lin Yuan knew that Lu Jie must be feeling a lot at this moment, so he patted Lu Jie's shoulder again. When you entered the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association, I opened a breeding room for you. Go and evolve the insect queen into a fantasy breed first. Lin Yuan was very happy for Lu Jie. Although he had wasted 2 years, after the insect queen became a fantasy breed, Lu Jie might not just be Radiance 100 sequence number 39 this year. Lu Jie nodded vigorously. Even though he was a man of steel, his nose turned sour when he heard Lin Yuan's words, which sounded like he was talking about the blazing warm sun in the middle of winter. After a long while Lu Jie said in a hoarse voice, "Young Master Lin Yuan, Lin Yuan interrupted Lu Jie. You swore on the willpower rune to become my retainer knight. But you might be my retainer knight, but you're also my friend." Lin Yuan said these words very seriously. Lin Yuan had risen from humble beginnings, so he would not easily treat others as subordinates. Whether it was toward Lu Jie or Wen Yu. As a person who had lived 2 lives, Lin Yuan understood that the relationship between people, no matter which world they were in, ultimately came down to 4 words. Put yourself in someone else's shoes. Lu Jie looked at the look in Lin Yuan's eyes and was stunned for a long time. Then he nodded heavily, and an indescribable warmth spread in his heart. Friend? Lu Jie chewed on this sentence in his heart several times, and his eyes gave off an extreme brilliance. At this moment, to Lin Yuan Lu Jie in this life, he was a friend, a retainer, and a faith. Fighting alone in the frost hymn, the insect swarm was as vast as the city. The Iron Blood City was surging outside, the willpower was enlightened, withering and flourishing. It had all turned into perfection at this moment. After sending Lu Jie off, Lin Yuan started to think about what he was going to do during this seclusion in the breeding room. After thinking about it, Lin Yuan realized that he would probably be in seclusion for nearly 2 months. However, after this seclusion, Lin Yuan would have the capital to compete with the Radiance 100 sequence members. Lin Yuan raised his hand and summoned Red Thorn, looking at its true data. Lin Yuan could not help but have high hopes for Red Thorn in the future. Fey name, Red Thorn, predatory plant. Fey species, vine subfamily / kingflower, Fey grade, bronze, 310. Fey type, source / wood, Fey quality, epic abilities frowny face mouth of relinquish, secretes an exuberant digestive fluid. The digestive fluid has a strong corrosive nature and can rapidly digest the energy in the food. Armor-piercing vines, rapidly wrapping the vines and shaking rapidly, increasing the vines' piercing armor-piercing effect. Exclusive skill frowny face spore proliferation. The spore cavity spits out a large number of spores. The spores can absorb the energy provided by red thorn or flesh energy to rapidly proliferate and grow child ramets and ramets that are controlled by the mother ramets. Red thorn's true rise started when it reached bronze and the exclusive skill spore proliferation appeared. The exclusive skill spore proliferation immediately changed Red Thorn's combat style. If Red Thorn was said to be a warrior fighting alone, then it had now awakened the exclusive skill spore proliferation. During the battle in the Insect Sea, it was a commander commanding the child ramets and child ramets. However, Lin Yuan believed that Red Thorn's true metamorphosis would be when it reached legend and became a fantasy breed. At that moment, Lin Yuan took out the source-type lifeform acid corrosion queen bee's egg from the leaf-shaped Fey storage box. He immediately read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 171. Next, Lin Yuan was going to place the acid corrosion queen bee's egg in Red Thorn's digestive cavity and let it hatch. Lin Yuan conveyed his thoughts to Red Thorn through spiritual fluctuations, and Red Thorn quickly understood what he meant. Red Thorn used the vine without thorns to wrap around the acid corrosion queen bee's egg in Lin Yuan's hand. However, Red Thorn did not place the acid corrosion queen bee's egg in its digestive cavity. Instead, it used the vine to send the egg into the mouth of Relinquish. After Red Thorn swallowed the acid corrosion queen bee's egg into the mouth of Relinquish, Lin Yuan immediately began to feed Red Thorn a large amount of dimensional lifeforms flesh in the diamond phase storage box. Lin Yuan picked a lot of Class 3 alien insect flesh with strong acid in their bodies and fed them into the mouth of Relinquish. After Red Thorn was promoted to bronze grade, Lin Yuan had started to choose Class 3 dimensional lifeforms as food, which was equivalent to the energy of a gold Fey. After Lin Yuan fed Red Thorn a large amount of Class 3 alien insect flesh, he began to circulate the spiritual power in his body and fully activated the mouth of Relinquish. He let the mouth of Relinquish quickly absorb the energy in these Class 3 alien insects' flesh. After hatching, the acid corrosion queen bee would immediately build a nest. Lin Yuan did not know how much energy it would consume to build the nest, but it was better to be prepared now. Just like that, Red Thorn stopped eating quickly after about a full day. Instead, it absorbed the Class 3 alien insect's flesh's energy at a normal speed. Upon seeing this, Lin Yuan stopped circulating his spiritual power and did not fully activate the mouth of Relinquish to digest the dimensional lifeform's flesh. During this day, Lin Yuan had been activating the mouth of Relinquish to digest these Class 3 alien insects' flesh, which had consumed a lot of energy. At that moment, a gray bee the size of a thumb crawled out of the flesh-like flower above the mouth of Relinquish. This bee still looked very fragile, but the two stingers on its upper limbs and the stinger at the back of its tail were sharp enough to flash with cold light. Lin Yuan used true data to check this newly hatched acid corrosion queen bee. He found that the acid corrosion queen bee was only a normal I/normal source type lifeform. However, Lin Yuan was rather surprised when he saw the normal I/normal acid corrosion queen bee. Because Red Thorn had devoured a large amount of Class 3 alien insect flesh, the amount of flesh and energy it absorbed in a day was more than 10 times what it usually absorbed. In other words, the energy of such a large amount of dimensional creature flesh had been used by the newly hatched acid corrosion queen bee to build a nest. He did not know what the nest looked like after the acid corrosion queen bee was born. As the acid corrosion queen bee's nest was in the mouth of Relinquish, Lin Yuan couldn't possibly enter the mouth of Relinquish to check. However, he could sense through Red Thorn that the nest built by the acid corrosion queen bee was not small. This nest was constructed by the acid corrosion queen bee by condensing Red Thorn's digestive fluids into acid crystals. It could be said to be a huge project. When the acid corrosion queen bee had just finished building its nest, he could sense that Red Thorn, which was connected to his bloodline, had signed a contract with this acid corrosion queen bee. He had never known what kind of contract the acid corrosion queen bee would choose to sign with Red Thorn after building the nest. How far could such a contractual relationship go? Now, Lin Yuan found that the contract between Red Thorn and the acid corrosion queen bee was simply harsh to the extreme. If Red Thorn was a queen that looked down on the world, then the acid corrosion queen bee was a subordinate at the queen's feet. At that moment, Lin Yuan could sense that the newly hatched acid corrosion queen bee had been releasing spiritual signals to flatter Red Thorn. Such spiritual signals were simply more humble than a peerless bootlicker. Lin Yuan did not have the strength to complain about the acid corrosion queen bee that he had just hatched, as his main task now was to raise its grade. Lin Yuan calmed down, and Red Thorn commanded the newly hatched acid corrosion queen bee to fly to Lin Yuan's palm. Lin Yuan brought the acid corrosion queen bee into the spirit lock spatial zone and enhanced the gray and very young acid corrosion queen bee. With the help of the high concentration of spirit chi in the spirit lock spatial zone, the acid corrosion queen bee evolved very quickly. Normal, elite, epic, bronze, legend, silver. Lin Yuan only stopped when the acid corrosion queen bee reached gold. At that moment, Lin Yuan finally had a gold Fey. Only now did he truly have the combat power of a top expert of the younger generation. Even if he evolved the source-type acid corrosion queen bee to gold in the spirit lock spatial zone, it still took a lot of time. Lin Yuan looked at the time on his phone. It actually took nearly 20 days to evolve a Fey from normal I/normal all the way to gold I/legend. This was the result of Lin Yuan evolving it with all his might in the spirit lock spatial zone. When Lin Yuan wanted to evolve the acid corrosion queen bee from gold I again, he found that he really could not do it in a short time. He knew that if he wanted to upgrade a gold phase grade, he would have to become a B-rank spirit chi professional before he could do it easily. However, he was already very satisfied to be able to evolve the acid corrosion queen bee to gold I/legend. Even if the legend acid corrosion queen bee was only at gold I/legend, it could still display great combat power. Even if it was only at legend I, its combat power would probably be comparable to a class 6 or 7 epic Fey of the same grade. Now that Lin Yuan looked at the acid corrosion queen bee that he had evolved all the way to gold, he could not help but have a different feeling. The acid corrosion queen bee was currently Lin Yuan's first source-type life form to evolve from normal I/normal all the way to gold. This sense of accomplishment of evolving life forms washed away Lin Yuan's fatigue for the past 20 days. This was because this sense of accomplishment of evolving life forms was a kind of spiritual sublimation no matter when it was experienced. At that moment, the acid corrosion queen bee's body had grown to about 15 centimeters in length. Its body was long and slender, and it had a dark red metallic luster. Under this dark red metallic luster, there were strange dark green stripes, revealing a kind of sinister beauty. The acid corrosion queen bee's upper limbs had two rather thick stingers, and its tail also had two slender stingers, one at the front and one at the back. The stingers were thick while the stingers were sharp and slender. Both stingers had a strange green cold light. The acid corrosion queen bee flew up from Lin Yuan's palm and flew around him intimately before landing on his hand again. Then Lin Yuan felt the acid corrosion queen bee emit an eagerness to see Red Thorn. Lin Yuan could not help but complain in his heart. What a bootlicker. Lin Yuan simply took the gold acid corrosion queen bee and left the spirit lock spatial zone. Even though the acid corrosion queen bee had evolved to gold, it still carefully fawned on Red Thorn like before. Red Thorn, the landlord, was obviously very cold to its tenant, the acid corrosion queen bee. However, the acid corrosion queen bee did not care, as if Red Thorn only needed to pay it a little attention, and it would be a great gift. The acid corrosion queen bee happily flew among Red Thorn's dancing vines and landed on the rose-shaped red flowers on Red Thorn's digestive cavity from time to time to rest. At that moment, Lin Yuan carefully checked the acid corrosion queen bee's true data after it evolved to gold/legend. Baidu read the latest chapter of the Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 172. He was looking forward to the true data of the acid corrosion queen bee, which had been promoted to gold/legend. Fey name: acid corrosion queen bee spirit species, Vespidi genus, Fey grade, gold, 110, Fey type, source/poison, Fey quality, legend skills frowny face wing concealment. The acid corrosion queen bee enters a certain invisible state by flapping its wings at a high frequency. Bone-piercing stinger. Extremely hard and powerful rotating stingers can cause bone-piercing injuries. Parasitic pupa. The stinger of the acid corrosion queen bee's forelimb can release a parasitic pupa into the target's body. Acid-devouring larvae. The acid corrosion queen bee will hatch a large number of acid-devouring larvae when it has enough acid. The acid-devouring larvae can be used as the acid corrosion queen bee's food to quickly replenish the acid corrosion queen bee's energy and poison reserves. Exclusive skill frowny face second hit kill. The two stingers carry two different kinds of corrosive poison. If the two stingers hit the same part of the target, the two kinds of poison will fuse and disintegrate the target instantly. When he saw the acid corrosion queen bee's ability, Lin Yuan suddenly could not help but complain in his heart. What a cruel bootlicker. Wing stealth greatly increased the acid corrosion queen bee's concealment. Red Thorn and the acid corrosion queen bee were a combination. Red Thorn released its spores to produce ramets and ramets, spreading the sea of flowers. In a situation where there wasn't a large amount of flesh on the battlefield, Red Thorn's sea of flowers consumed the energy within its body. Therefore, the sea of flowers was destined to not be as shocking as it was in Millstone Town, and there would not be as many child ramets and ramets. In fact, in the Star Web duel, Red Thorn was now a bronze source-type life form that could even collide with Silver Phase in the sea of flowers. However, the child ramets and ramets produced by Red Thorn's exclusive skill, reproductive spores, weren't meant to kill Sanggrade Phase. Instead, they were used to control the situation. Red Thorn's sea of flowers was able to restrain the enemy phase movements within the sea of flowers. At that moment, the acid corrosion queen bee, which was using wing stealth, was a perfect assassin. The bone-penetrating poison needle could pierce through the armor of the phase in the sea of flowers and penetrate the target's bones, causing bone-penetrating damage. However, the ability that caused Lin Yuan's eyes to shrink was the parasitic wasp chrysalis. Parasite chrysalis was such a cruel skill. Lin Yuan had just carefully examined the stinger at the front of the acid corrosion queen bee, and it was hollow. Lin Yuan had always thought that the hollow stinger was used to inject acidic toxins into the target's body. He didn't expect that it was actually used to release the parasitic wasp pupae that were about to hatch. The parasitic pupae of the acid corrosion queen bee had the same growth conditions as the acid corrosion queen bee. The acid corrosion wasp pupae that was about to hatch would instinctively search for the most acidic organ and tissue in the target's body. He drilled into it and hatched it. This was equivalent to saying that if the acid corrosion queen bee were to inject into the target's body, the parasitic pupa that was about to hatch would instinctively burrow into the target's stomach, using the powerful stomach acid in the target's body to incubate. What kind of torture would the parasite pupae inflict on its target? Lin Yuan couldn't imagine the intense pain that went from the skin to the abdomen. What's more, the parasitic pupae that hatched in the stomach would absorb a large amount of stomach acid and nutrients from the target's body. Lin Yuan knew how much acid and energy the acid corrosion queen bee had absorbed from Red Thorn's mouth of relinquish. However, even if there was a large amount of energy in an ordinary lifeform's body, how could there be so much acid? The absorption of a large amount of stomach acid would destroy the target's stomach function and cause it to wither. If the parasitic pupae felt that the stomach acid was not enough, it would drill into other organs to absorb the acid. If the acid in the target's body did not meet the conditions for the parasitic pupae to hatch, the parasitic pupae would not hatch. However, even if the parasitic pupae did not hatch, the body of the acid corrosion queen bee's parasitic target would have long been destroyed beyond recognition. However, if the acid in the target's body was barely enough for the parasitic pupae to hatch, it would be equivalent to hatching an enemy. The parasitic pupae would break out of the target's body according to the acid corrosion queen bee's command. The parasitic pupae's ability was truly cruel and terrifying. Of course, the parasitic pupae was not without weaknesses. The acid corrosion queen bee had to pierce the target's skin before it could release the parasitic pupae into the target's body. However, the bone-piercing stinger perfectly helped the acid corrosion queen bee solve this weakness. The bone-piercing stinger could break the defense, allowing the acid corrosion queen bee to release the parasitic pupae under the skin pierced by the bone-piercing stinger. Moreover, Red Thorn's armor-piercing vines also had a certain armor-piercing effect. Previously, Lin Yuan did not understand why the acid corrosion queen bee was called the acid corrosion queen bee. However, after seeing the acid corrosion queen bee's gold ability, acid-swallowing larvae, he understood. The acid corrosion queen bee was an extremely cruel source-type lifeform by nature. A queen bee would give birth to pups in a built hive. However, all the pups were just rations for the acid corrosion queen bee to recover. However, it was these acid-swallowing larvae that greatly increased the acid corrosion queen bee's endurance in battle. However, these abilities were not the acid corrosion queen bee's most powerful killing means. The acid corrosion queen bee's most powerful killing means were the exclusive skills it had comprehended at bronze. 2 fatal strikes. The acid corrosion queen bee's tail had 2 sharp stingers. These 2 stingers contained 2 different kinds of bee venom. These 2 super toxic bee venoms might not be strong individually, but if they came into contact, they would immediately produce a strong reaction, instantly corroding and disintegrating the parts of the target's body that came into contact with the bee venom. The most powerful thing about this 2 fatal strikes was that it did not require armor piercing. Even if the stingers only injected 2 kinds of venom into the target's armor, it would also produce a huge reaction, corroding and disintegrating the target's armor. Then Lin Yuan tested the acid corrosion queen bee's exclusive skill, 2 fatal strikes. Lin Yuan looked at the corroded and disintegrated metal spiritual materials in his hand and had a better understanding of the acid corrosion queen bee's exclusive skill, 2 fatal strikes. If this acid corrosion queen bee's stingers could stab a platinum fey, the part that was hit would be severely corroded or even disintegrated, unless it had a super strong defense. However, it was not easy for the acid corrosion queen bee to use 2 stingers to hit the same part of a platinum fey twice. Lin Yuan was very satisfied with this gold eye/legend source type life form, the acid corrosion queen bee. As the acid corrosion queen bee danced among Red Thorn's vines with a relaxed look, Lin Yuan could not help but think of the cruelty behind the acid corrosion queen bee's appearance, especially the 2 stingers that were brewing a second kill. It was really like the saying went, the most poisonous thing is the wasp's stingers. In the natural world, the queen bee was responsible for the colony's production in the hive. However, the acid corrosion queen bee was not like this. The acid corrosion queen bee's progeny, acid-swallowing larvae, were just like the food that it had saved in advance. On one side, the acid corrosion queen bee humbly fawned on Red Thorn like the most loyal bootlicker. On the other side, it cruelly treated its progeny and enemies. Such an acid corrosion queen bee could be said to be a contradiction, but it was strong enough. Lin Yuan stretched and stored Red Thorn and the acid corrosion queen bee in its body into the diamond leaf-shaped face storage box. Red Thorn and the acid corrosion queen bee, which had just evolved to gold, needed a lot of nutrients, and now was the best time for them to do so. Lin Yuan did not choose to rest and summoned Chimey. Chimey, which was summoned by Lin Yuan, seemed to be in a daze. In the past, Chimey was the most noisy and clingy. However, Chimey was frowning and had a difficult expression on its face, which made Lin Yuan a little worried. Why did Yinin suddenly become depressed? Baiduan read the latest chapter of the Imperial Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 173. Lin Yuan was rather worried as he communicated with Chimey. However, when Chimey transmitted a spiritual wave, Lin Yuan was startled. Looking at Chimey flying around in anticipation, Lin Yuan cleared his throat and said, "If you want to evolve into a human form, you need to reach suzerain and myth 2. If you want to evolve into a human, you'll need to advance to the suzerain tier and reach myth 2. Chimey had always been cheerful and would stick to him and hum songs every day. Since when did the carefree Chimey become so obsessed with becoming a human form? Since when did the carefree Chimey have such an obsession with becoming a human form? If genius were here, it would definitely hide under the stool and cover its eyes with its small claws, not daring to look at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan had not used genius specialized transformation to turn it into a pair of glasses or a mask to wear on its face. Therefore, the idle genius had become Chimey's live streaming room manager in the spirit lock spatial zone again. Genius's return saved Chimey, which had been in a fluster. During the live streaming process, Genius had helped Chimey solve all kinds of problems. Even when Chimey went to PK with other live streamers, Genius, as the Thousand Questions Beast, helped Chimey solve the problem flawlessly. If Genius had not quickly made a move to solve it, Chimey would have revealed its original form because the GIF would disappear during the PK. However, a lot of things had happened in Chimey's live streaming room in recent days. First, Rank 2 surpassed Rank 1, causing a lot of popularity in Chimey's live streaming room. Then, the bullet screen suddenly flooded with a fan meet and greet. After Chimey understood what the fan meet and greet was, it had an idea. However, when it thought that it was just a bird, it could not help but sigh. In Chimey's eyes, Lin Yuan had always been omnipotent, so it asked Lin Yuan how it could transform into a human form. Sure enough, Lin Yuan's answer answered Chimey's question. After hearing Lin Yuan's answer, Chimey immediately became happy. Its mind was filled with thoughts of reaching suzerain/myth 2 and transforming into a human form. Then it would hold a glorious fan meet and greet. Just thinking about it made Chimey feel elated. As it thought about it, it became a little nervous and secretly looked at Lin Yuan with a guilty conscience. After all, Lin Yuan did not know about its singing. Chimey wondered what it would do if Lin Yuan found out that it was live streaming on Star Web and was unhappy. However, when Chimey saw Lin Yuan looking at it with worry in his eyes, it happily jumped on Lin Yuan's ear. She intimately used her little head to rub the stray hair beside Lin Yuan's ear. Chimey thought, Lin Yuan treats me so well, so he wouldn't be so fierce to me. If he doesn't like me singing, then I won't sing on Star Web anymore. I'll only sing for him and beside him. Lin Yuan had seen that Chimey had been filled with worries earlier, but it was now extremely happy. He could not help but rub Chimey's little head with his fingers. Even so, Lin Yuan was still kept in the dark by Chimey. He thought that Chimey had been so sentimental because it had entered puberty. Chimey flew down from Lin Yuan's ear and landed on his fingertips, jumping around. After playing with Chimey for a while and seeing that it had regained its usual liveliness, Lin Yuan was relieved. Lin Yuan looked at Chimey and said with a serious expression, Chimey, if you want to transform into a human form, then evolving into a fantasy breed will be the most important step for your future development. If Lin Yuan was most worried about his contracted phase evolving, it would undoubtedly be Chimey and Genius. At first, Chimey was just a sound bird that had failed to evolve into a normal songstress bird. However, Chimey had already evolved into a flowing cloud azure bird and walked on a path that no sound bird had taken before. Therefore, Chimey could be said to be the pioneer of the sound bird species in terms of evolution. Meanwhile, Lin Yuan was the person who had created this great miracle of life. Chimey, a little fellow that was abandoned when it was just born, was brought onto a path that needed to be opened up by itself through brambles and thorns. This path might be obstructive and difficult, but it would definitely be the most dazzling. When Chimey sensed Lin Yuan's seriousness, it also became very serious. Upon hearing that this was the first step to transform into a human form, Chimey's eyes lit up. At that moment, Chimey's small body was filled with indomitable determination. Lin Yuan used his spiritual energy to summon the willpower rune from the rising sun. This willpower rune was very compatible with Chimy's exclusive skill, Clear Sky, and Lin Yuan also wanted Chimy to evolve along this path. Only by choosing a general direction of evolution could its future development be broader and smoother. The moment Lin Yuan summoned the willpower rune that he had comprehended in the rising sun, the cloud patterns on Chimy's body lit up. As Chimy flapped its wings, it flew toward this twilight willpower rune. Chimy fused with this twilight willpower rune. It was as though Chimy had thrown itself into the first rays of dawn. In this dazzling light, Chimy kept chirping, its voice filled with pain. When he had sensed the evolution of the sharp iron horn bull into the fantasy breed obsidian iron wild bull, he had known that life evolution was a path that required one to step on thorns and walk barefoot, honing one step at a time. Upon hearing Chimy's painful chirping, Lin Yuan's heart ached, but there was nothing he could do. This was because behind this chirping pain was a new life that was slowly rising. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly heard a clear chirp that was very similar to Chimy's previous chirp, but it was more pleasant and crisp. This chirp seemed to contain the breeze, the raindrops, the wind blowing the wheat, the first rays of dawn, the dew washing away the dust, and the cold plum blossoms. This sound seemed to be the most essential sound in the depths of nature, engraved with all the subtleties in the depths of nature. After Chimy's chirp transformed, the light did not converge. Instead it became brighter. Lin Yuan saw an emerald blue bird fly out of this joyous light, and there seemed to be a few slightly raised feathers on its forehead. These feathers made the emerald blue bird look abnormally gentle and beautiful. The emerald blue feathers seemed to be the purest blue sky above the dome. The cloud patterns on the emerald blue bird stirred up clouds as it flew, and the cloud patterns on the feathers seemed to give birth to stars. When Chimy flapped its wings, there seemed to be stars twinkling in the clouds. When Chimy saw Lin Yuan, it did not come over to get close to him. Instead, it chirped in the breeding room and happily displayed its ability to Lin Yuan. Then there seemed to be a clear light sprinkling down in the breeding room. Lin Yuan knew that this was Chimy using its exclusive skill, Clear Sky. The sun's radiance was sprinkling straight at Chimy from outside the window. In an instant, Chimy, which was originally not as big as a fist, was suddenly dyed with this layer of clear light. A layer of glass-like flames ignited on its wingspan, and the emerald blue feathers instantly turned into a faint golden color. This golden color was not the color of metal, but the dazzling radiance of the sun's clear radiance. At that moment, Chimy's wingspan, which was burning with a glass-like flame, was nearly 1 meter long when stretched out. The cloud patterns on its body stirred up clouds, and the stars in the cloud patterns suddenly lit up. The stars collided as though they had fused into a rising sun. At that moment, Lin Yuan felt majestic energy from Chimy's body. However, when Chimy chirped and showed Lin Yuan its transformed appearance, the brilliance on its body suddenly disappeared in less than half a minute, and it turned back into the original emerald blue bird. As he looked at Chimy, which had fallen asleep in his arms, Lin Yuan revealed a helpless and doting smile. If Lin Yuan hadn't caught it in time, Chimy would have fallen to the ground. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh when he looked at the slightly raised feathers on Chimy's forehead and the new stars in the cloud patterns on its wings. In terms of appearance, there were probably few small fays that could compare to Chimy. Chimy's current appearance was really good at fighting. If it participated in the top 10 most beautiful fays selection, it would probably be on the list if it did not only have one. At that moment, Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to check the attributes of Chimy, which had evolved into a fantasy breed. He immediately read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 174. Under True Data, Chimy was no longer a flowing cloud azure bird but had transformed into a twilight starbird when it had become a fantasy breed. As he looked at the sleeping Chimy, Lin Yuan felt an indescribable pride in his heart. So what if it was a phoenix's nirvana? A phoenix's nirvana was just a phoenix evolving into a phoenix. Chimy had evolved from an abandoned sound bird that had failed to evolve into a songstress bird. It had been reborn and grown into a fantasy breed twilight starbird. After sleeping for a long time, Chimy slowly woke up. Chimy, who had woken up, was still a little weak. It took a long time for it to recover. Chimy, which had recovered, flew intimately to Lin Yuan's ear. It had clearly treated Lin Yuan's ear as its exclusive territory. After playing with Chimy for a while, Lin Yuan took it into the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. Lin Yuan began to enhance Chimy in the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. This time Lin Yuan enhanced Chimey at Bronze X/Fantasy I, the same as when he had enhanced the Jasmine Lily at Bronze X/Fantasy I. It took them nearly a month to finish all of them. A month later Lin Yuan upgraded Chimey from Bronze X/Fantasy I to Silver I/Fantasy I. Lin Yuan could not help but sigh when he sensed Chimey's state after it became a Silver Fantasy breed. Every time a Fantasy breed Fae advanced a grade, it would undergo an earth-shattering change. This was a true sense of a torrent-like transformation in the life history of a species. After Chimey became a Fantasy breed and transformed into a Twilight Starbird, its elemental had changed from the previous Sound Elemental and Gas Elemental to the current Sound Elemental and Light Elemental. According to normal evolution, Chimey's newly evolved Gas Elemental would not easily disappear after transforming into a Fantasy breed. When Chimey had been at Elite, it had become a Flowing Cloud Azure bird because it had comprehended the Gas Elemental attribute. This had also allowed Chimey to not be limited to the Sound Elemental and embark on a broader path. However, after Chimey had evolved into a Fantasy breed and fused with the Twilight Willpower rune, it had replaced the Gas Elemental attribute. Logically speaking, it should have been the Sound Elemental attribute that had been replaced. Lin Yuan did not know that Chimey, which was jumping around on him, was filled with a strong obsession with the Sound Elemental attribute. When Chimey had first met Lin Yuan, it had been introverted and had low self-esteem. As a sound bird that had failed to evolve into a songstress bird, Chimey didn't even know how to sing a complete song. It was Lin Yuan's company that had swept away the dust on Chimey's life in Meng City and cast a beam of light that was warmer than the Twilight Willpower rune. Lin Yuan had patiently taught Chimey the first song over and over again. He didn't want Chimey to think that it was a sound bird that could be casually thrown away. It was Lin Yuan who let Chimey know the feeling of being doted on. He had also allowed Chimey to evolve step by step until it had become a Twilight Azure bird. At that time, the simple ballad that Lin Yuan had taught Chimey had witnessed their meeting. Therefore this song was the obsession in Chimey's heart. It was unwilling to erase it even in its death during its metamorphosis. All of this was Chimey's obsession, as well as a miracle in the history of the sound bird's evolution. Miracles happen every day in life. It was precisely because of the various miracles that the River of Life had evolved to such a magnificent scale. Lin Yuan carefully observed Chimey's true data at Silver I/Fantasy I. Fae name, Twilight Starbird, Fae species, Plume Sparrow/Starlight Bird, Fae grade, Silver, 110, Fae type, Sound/Light, Fae quality, Fantasy I abilities Frowny face Sound thrust, fires 3 sharp thorns formed by sound at a designated target. Scattered light. The body emits scattered rays of light that have burning and controlling effects. Sunlight ray. Emits various rays from the sun that will cause negative weakening to the target. Exclusive skill Frowny face clear sky. After a clear bird's chirp, the clouds will disperse and the sky will clear up. Radiant body. Quickly absorb the sun's power and a large amount of sun energy will gather in the body to form the radiant body. Due to the change in Chimey's element, chaotic flow, which it had comprehended at Elite, had become scattered light. When Chimey flapped its wings, it would emit scattered light rays that had burning and control effects. Compared to chaotic flow, scattered light obviously had increased lethality, but its control ability should be much weaker. As for the sunlight ray that it had comprehended at Silver, Lin Yuan was somewhat speechless. Lin Yuan could not help but want to drill into Chimey's little head to see what it was thinking. How did Chimey comprehend all kinds of harmful rays in such a beautiful blazing sun's light to weaken and control the target? There were all kinds of harmful rays in the sun's rays. These harmful rays had radiation-like destructive significance to life, and Chimey controlled these rays to use on the target. These rays might cause dizziness, nausea, armor piercing, and a series of other negative effects. It was considered a kind of all-round weakening. However, one would only know how strong the sunlight rays' weakening was after fighting on the star web. As for the radiant body, which Chimey had comprehended after becoming a fantasy breed Twilight Bluebird, Lin Yuan had already felt the terrifying energy contained in the radiant body when Chimey had used it earlier. Chimey had enhanced itself with the sun's power, and the glazed flames on its body had caused its body size to increase exponentially. The destructive power that it carried in that instant could simply be called a trump card. However, the time that Chimey had entered the radiant body had been too short, just over 30 seconds. After the 30-second burst, Chimey's spiritual power would be overdrawn, and its physical strength would be exhausted. It would then fall into a coma. Although Chimey's radiant body only had a short burst, it could be considered a trump card of Lin Yuan's. When Chimey had become a silver/fantasy breed, Lin Yuan had let it use the radiant body and found that the time it could persist in the radiant body state had increased from half a minute to nearly 1 minute. This time, Lin Yuan carefully sensed the energy contained in Chimey's radiant body when it entered its state. If this energy burst out in an instant, the impact would be nearly twice as strong as the gold acid corrosion queen bee's all-out attack. Moreover, Chimey did not rely on physical attacks under the radiant body but the pure burning ability of the glazed flames. Among the two exclusive skills that Chimey had comprehended, Clear Sky could be used perfectly with the radiant body. It could ensure that Chimey would be able to absorb the light from the sun or stars under any circumstances. At the same time, Chimey's silver fantasy breed ability, Sun Ray, could help Red Thorn and the acid corrosion queen bee weaken the target. This way, Lin Yuan's current phase could use their abilities to form a set of combat system. If Lin Yuan were to climb the tower on Star Web now, he could use the Jasmine Lily to heal, the Spirit Gather Goldfish to restore spiritual power, and the Blue Flash Purple Butterfly to control. After tool transformation, Genius Mask and Glasses would have the effect of seeing through the target's weakness. Coupled with Red Thorn, the Acid Corrosion Queen Bee and Chimey's main attack, it should not be difficult for Lin Yuan to reach the 100th step and pass the promotion duel. Read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. Chapter 175. After being in seclusion for close to 2 months, Lin Yuan was truly tired. He carried Genius, who was squatting at the side, and Chimey, who was chirping non-stop. Lin Yuan leaned on the sofa in the lounge and closed his eyes to have a good sleep. It was just like 5 months ago in the Xia region's Fei store, when Lin Yuan, Chimey, and Genius were snuggling together and sleeping. Lin Yuan's expression was so peaceful and tranquil. Chimey and Genius were leaning on the youth's body as though they were leaning on the entire world. This youth's not-so-broad shoulders were like a mountain, completely supporting the two little fellows' reliance. Time had changed and people had also changed. However, their original hearts had not changed. Back in the Xia region's Fei store, there was the sickly youth, the malnourished 100 questions beast, and the sound bird that had failed to evolve into a songstress bird and was treated as trash. They had already obtained a new life. This sickly youth had already become the prodigy of the younger generation. The other two little beasts that were despised had also grown up with the youth, becoming the pioneers of the sound bird and 100 questions beast's evolution. They had evolved on a path that had no precedence. Lin Yuan had barely rested for the past 2 months, and he was truly exhausted. He slept very soundly and couldn't help but snore. Chimey shrunk into Lin Yuan's neck and seemed especially at ease. However, Chimey's slight movements had obviously woken Genius up. Genius let out a sleepy meow and looked at Lin Yuan. It then picked up a towel blanket from the sofa at the side. She carefully covered Lin Yuan's body with the towel and blanket before burrowing into it and sleeping soundly in Lin Yuan's embrace. When Lin Yuan woke up, he was a little surprised when he saw the time. He had actually slept for 2 full days. As soon as he woke up, Lin Yuan immediately felt his stomach protesting. Goo 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 goo. He took out the rations and fruits that he had stored in the leaf-shaped Fei storage box and started eating them. When Lin Yuan got up from the sofa, he was very careful as he was afraid of waking up Genius and Chimey. However, the sweetness of the fruits had woken them up from their dreams. Upon seeing that Genius and Chimey had woken up, he fed Genius a platinum cane loofah and Chimey a platinum celery vine. Chimey and Genius surrounded Lin Yuan and obediently waited for Lin Yuan to feed them. It was a warm scene. Lin Yuan cut the cane loofah into small pieces and tore the celery vine before feeding it to Genius and Chimey. Subsequently, he stored Genius and Chimey in the Spirit Lock spatial zone and walked out of the breeding room in high spirits. At this time, the sunlight outside the window was just right. Even though it was late autumn, the bright sunlight shone through the window into the cultivation room, making it feel warm and cozy. As soon as he walked out of the breeding room, he noticed a person standing at the door. This person was none other than Lu Jie. When Lu Jie saw Lin Yuan, he immediately revealed a simple and honest smile. Lin Yuan did not expect Lu Jie to be waiting for him at the breeding room's entrance. What happens after the insect queen becomes a fantasy breed? Lu Jie's eyes flashed with a dazzling luster as he looked at Lin Yuan and said solemnly, "Very strong?" Lin Yuan knew that Lu Jie was not someone who boasted. Since Lu Jie said it was very strong, it must be very strong. It seemed that the exclusive skill that the insect queen had comprehended after becoming a fantasy breed had greatly improved Lu Jie's combat power. There was no complacency on Lu Jie's face, only solemnity. Lu Jie lowered his head and looked at the small shield engraved above the two-star crest hanging on his chest. This shield would be Lu Jie's most tenacious destiny in life in the future. It was just like what Lu Jie was thinking. Lu Jie believed that the insect queen's evolution into a fantasy breed was just to make this shield that guarded the two stars tougher. Being strong was to protect. In the past, Lu Jie protected a part of the world. In the future, Lu Jie would be protecting the youth in front of him. Lin Yuan and Lu Jie walked out of the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association side by side. Lin Yuan suddenly thought of Wen Yu. Before Lin Yuan had come to the Royal Capital's Creation Master Association for seclusion, Wen Yu had taken over the development of the manor's land. Lin Yuan gave Cheng Wu's beetle-shaped diamond face storage box that contained radiance dollars to Wen Yu. This was because no matter what Wen Yu did to develop this land, she would have to spend money. In the past 2 months, Lin Yuan was really a little worried about Wen Yu. Although Wen Yu had taken over the task at that time, it was really difficult for a teenage girl to manage the entire manor's construction. Lin Yuan thought that since Lu Jie had come out of the breeding room in advance, he should know Wen Yu's current situation. Lin Yuan looked at Lu Jie and asked, "How's the situation on Wen Yu's side?" Lu Jie actually did not spend much time promoting the insect queen into a fantasy breed. Lu Jie, who had come out of the breeding room, knew before entering that Lin Yuan would be in seclusion for more than 2 months. Therefore, after coming out, Lu Jie went straight to the location of the land that Lin Yuan had spent 7.5 million radiance dollars to buy. He was going to help Wen Yu. However, Lu Jie had just gone to help for less than a day when he was driven back by Wen Yu. Under Wen Yu's godly operation, Lu Jie found that no matter what he did, he was more of a hindrance. Now that Lin Yuan asked, Lu Jie could only scratch his head awkwardly and did not know what to say. It was really hard to explain in a few words. When Lin Yuan saw Lu Jie's expression, he knew that something must have happened. However, when Lin Yuan and Lu Jie came to the previous piece of land, Lin Yuan's expression also became the same as Lu Jie's. Lin Yuan's expression had also become the same as Lu Jie's, blank and silly. If others saw Lu Jie and Lin Yuan like this, they would probably send Lu Jie and Lin Yuan to the hospital's psychiatric department for treatment. Lin Yuan felt that the scene in front of him was simply too shocking. Before Lin Yuan had entered seclusion, it had been an open space full of all kinds of old facilities. Now, an elegant manor had been built on this open space. The environment in this manor naturally could not be compared to the Radiant Moon Palace, but it was definitely ranked among the top in the royal capital. Inside, there were 2 rows of exquisitely shaped ponds that were distributed by an artificial lake on both sides of the road. A large manor with only 3 floors but an area of nearly 1,000 square meters rose from the ground. This large manor's shape was simple and unadorned, and the design was carved with all kinds of auspicious fays. On the eaves and beams of the large manor, there were also wind chimes carved with beautiful jade. When the autumn wind blew, they gave off faint chimes with a strong poetic and picturesque feeling. The open space in front of the manor had not been decorated yet, but behind this 3-story, 1,000 square meter large manor was planted with a 3,000 meter long bamboo forest. There was a tree-shaded path in the bamboo forest. At the end of the bamboo forest was a pavilion that was greenish-white. The 4 corners of the pavilion were white cranes spreading their wings to fly, and the pavilion was engraved with faint lotus patterns, looking rather elegant. Next to the pavilion was a quiet pool. Behind the pavilion was a clear stream that connected to a valley. There was a feeling of scenery from all directions gathered in one pavilion. What an immortal scenery! Lin Yuan could not help but wonder if he had been in seclusion for 2 months or 2 years. Although he did not know how Wen Yu had done it, he could not help but sigh when he saw the beautiful scenery in the distance. The bamboo path leads to a secluded place, and the jade stream flows through the valley. At that moment, Lu Jie could not help but grin when he heard Lin Yuan's words. He felt that Lin Yuan's heart was simply too big. Baidu read the latest chapter of Beast Evolution Merchant Claw Book House for free. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.